Chapter 596. Howl, howl, howl. Woo. Amidst the miserable howls, more than 30 Wolfman genetic warriors were sliced in half at the waist. Blood gushed out like a tide, and steaming internal organs flowed all over the ground. The pungent smell of blood soared into the sky. Their bloodlines were powerful, and their vitality was vigorous. They didn't die immediately. They crawled and struggled on the ground, leaving behind streaks of stinking blood. They let out hair-raising howls and curses. The scene was exceptionally bloody and tragic. The second move. Jiang Tian's expression was calm. He raised his jade-white palm and patted it down lightly as if he was patting dust. Boom! A huge palm about 15 meters long appeared out of thin air 100 meters in the air. On it, golden light flashed and bloomed with thousands of auspicious colors. It was incomparably real and condensed. Even the lines on the palm could be seen clearly. It was like the five-finger mountain. Countless Tao patterns were inscribed on it, and streams of heaven and earth spirit chi were attracted to it, making the golden palm even more resplendent and heavy. What a monster! He's simply a freak of the cultivation world. Seeing this, Zhang Qianlei slapped his thigh, and his eyes widened. He couldn't describe his shock anymore. This palm condensed by Jiang Tian could be said to be a combination of magic and martial arts. Moreover, it had reached the pinnacle of perfection. The golden palm condensed by Jiang Tian's aura. However, the Tao patterns on it were top-notch spells. They continuously poured heaven and earth spirit chi into it and transformed it into metal spirit chi. If he fought Jiang Tian after this breakthrough, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand 3 palms from Jiang Tian. Before the huge palm arrived, the violent pressure first arrived. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Violent winds swept in all directions, and countless dust, dried branches, and withered leaves flew into the air. Boom. Towering trees collapsed one after another, and basketball-sized rocks burst out like bubbles. What is this? Many werewolves raised their heads. Their demonic blood-red eyes were filled with horror and fear. Rumble! The dozen or so werewolf warriors directly under the huge palm fell to their knees uncontrollably. Some were even forced to lie flat on the ground. Even if they screamed and struggled with all their might, and were so tired that they vomited blood and their blood vessels burst, they couldn't break free at all. Boom! The giant palm slammed down. A crater more than a meter deep appeared. Blood seeped out from the gaps between the fingers and the edges of the giant palm. When the giant palm dissipated, only then did everyone see that only a pile of rotten flesh and blood was left of the dozen werewolves in the deep pit. This is too strong. The Sea Lady and the others from Blue Storm were terrified. These Wolfman genetic warriors were comparable to S-class or even X-class ability users. Their strength was roughly on par with Chen Feng's group. If they went up to fight with Jiang Tian, they would probably end up with the same fate. Rumble! At this time, the situation of the battlefield changed once again. Numerous Wolfman genetic warriors retreated one after another. The 7 alpha wolves, on the other hand, charged side by side, each wielding a weapon, at Jiang Tian in tacit cooperation. These 7 alpha wolves were all over 3 meters tall. They were true descendants of werewolves and were not humans. They were the leaders of their respective teams and could be said to be the elites of the elites. Their strength far surpassed that of the leader, Garland, who had been killed by Jiang Tian, and was comparable to a half-step divine realm warrior. Ants will always be ants. Do you think being a little bigger can change your nature? Jiang Tian snorted disdainfully. His right hand flicked continuously as if playing a pipa, without a trace of smoke or fire. Immediately, 7 golden finger beams containing Tao patterns pierced through the air. They were extremely fast, like armor-piercing bullets shot out from a Barrett sniper rifle, but also like artillery shells shot out from a small-caliber cannon. The 7 alpha wolves all sensed the danger of these golden finger beams. Their reactions were also extremely fast. Their bodies moved irregularly like snakes, jumping up and down to dodge. Their movements were so fast that they could even dodge bullets. However, it was useless against the finger beams. Those thick golden finger beams, however, seemed to have a mind of their own. They were also like cruise missiles, firmly locking onto their targets and accurately shooting through their heads like maggots in a tarsal bone. Bang, bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, the heads and chests of the 7 alpha wolves exploded in an instant. Thick pillars of blood spurted out from their necks and shattered chests like fountains. It was as if a rain of blood was falling from the sky, and it did not dissipate for a long time. Kong Taechu, you have successfully angered me. Bang. The Wolf King could no longer endure such heavy losses. He took a step forward and stomped a deep hole in the ground. Ancient Moon God, on the night of the full moon when the aconite grass is in full bloom, please bestow power to your people in the name of the guardian of the night. The Wolf King Alexander howled at the sky and roared at the moon. The sound waves were like rolling torrents, spreading out for miles. At this moment, the full moon seemed to have sensed the Wolf King's summons, and it rippled like water. Rays of milk-like moonlight flowed slowly. The moonlight particles were like the aurora borealis, misty and instantly changing. It was magnificent and moving, and all of it poured into the Wolf King Alexander's body. Chi! A pillar of moonlight as thick as a bucket fell from the sky and hit the Wolf King. Under the cover of the pillar of light, Alexander's body emitted a dazzling white light. Like a movie special effect, he began to transform. Boom! His high-top military boots exploded, bursting open by a huge hairy wolf foot with bone hooks. Teeth cracked. His legs were like balloons being inflated, rising and expanding. His whole body instantly changed. His bones stretched and cracked, and his chest was quickly filled with thick and powerful muscles. His face elongated, grew hair and fangs, and turned into the shape of a wolf's head. It only took a few seconds. Alexander transformed from an ordinary old Russian man into a huge werewolf 5 to 6 meters tall. He was like a small mountain entrenched there, and his aura was intimidating, giving people a huge psychological pressure. This is the legendary moon-worshipping wolf clan, and also the most powerful wolf clan. This is a clan with innate abilities. They can naturally absorb the essence of the moon and turn it into surging energy. And today is the night of the full moon. Kong Taechu is in danger this time. The eyes of some blue storm powerhouses flickered with shock as they looked at the violent figure that was as majestic as a mountain with admiration and envy. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. It seems that I can only tear your throat and devour your flesh. The transformed Wolf King opened his mouth, and like a knell of death, the rolling sound waves reverberated in the air, causing ripples to appear in the air. A huge aura spread in all directions. Violent, bloodthirsty, cold, and cruel. It was intimidating and made people's hearts palpitate. Even many blue storm powerhouses subconsciously took a few steps back. The hair all over his body stood up like thorns, and his feet stomped on the ground. 2 deep footprints were left on the ground as he dashed towards Jiang Tian like a tsunami. Terrifying, his strength is at least 50 tons. This kind of strength is enough to tear apart a deity. Seeing this, the blue storm powerhouses sighed in horror. The distance of 200 meters was covered in a flash under the Wolf King's mad dash. He punched toward Jiang Tian. With this punch, even the air was annihilated. A vacuum appeared, and the surrounding air was turbulent. The surging power contained within was enough to shatter a mountain. Clang. Jiang Tian brought out the mountain-carrying turtle shield to test the Wolf King's strength. The Wolf King's fist smashed into the shield, and the surging power actually shattered the mountain-carrying turtle shield into pieces. His strength is not bad. He's definitely stronger than Bai Tianlei and his wife. In the distance, a serious expression appeared on Zhang Qianlei's face for the first time. The mountain-carrying turtle shield was originally the shell of the ancient Eastern Sea divine beast, the mountain-carrying turtle shield. It was indestructible. After being refined by Jiang Tian several times and engraved with enhancement patterns and runes, it weighed 10 tons and had astonishing defensive power. It could flatten a tank and withstand dozens of artillery bombardments. This meant that the Wolf King's strength could tear a tank apart. In terms of strength, it should be on the same level as Jiang Tian. Boom! This time, Jiang Tian shot out a high-grade fireball talisman. It turned into a fire dragon and burned toward the Wolf King to test his spiritual power. The Wolf King opened his bloody mouth, and his chest and lower abdomen caved in as he swallowed the 10-meter-long fire dragon into his stomach. A woo! Then, with a howl, the Wolf King opened his mouth, and his chest and abdomen shook. A stream of flames shot straight toward Jiang Tian. "Master, let me help you." Seeing this, Chitian Monkey roared and suddenly transformed. He was also 5 meters tall, comparable to the Wolf King. He leaped up and shot 20 meters into the air, waving his big iron staff and smashing it toward the Wolf King with the weight of Mount Tai. Boom! The staff smashed down like an ancient mountain, weighing more than a few tons and capable of capsizing and sinking a warship. This is the giant ape that fought with Kong Teichu against the 28th Eastern Sea Mixed Brigade. It's just like King Kong in the movies. It can definitely tear a Tyrannosaurus Rex apart and overturn a tank squadron. Many Blue Storm powerhouses were shocked and envious. How great would it be if they could get this giant ape to the United States military laboratory and clone its genes and mass-produce it? The Chitian monkey's attack was indeed terrifying, but the Wolf King was not afraid at all. He allowed the equaling Heaven Saint ape to smash his shoulder with the club. His body sank slightly and then he punched out. The Chitian monkey flew back dozens of meters. He did a nimble flip in the air and landed firmly on the ground. However, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. He grimaced in pain. One of his ribs was broken. This was not because the bloodline of the sacred battle apes was not as strong as that of the moon-worshipping werewolves. It was because Chitian monkey's cultivation was too shallow. He had only cultivated for a few years. On the other hand, the Wolf King Alexander had made his debut in the first battle. No one knew how long it had been. Seeing this, many of the werewolf genetic warriors were excited. They howled at the moon and cheered for their leader. This Wolf King is too scary. It has the power to destroy the world. It's not inferior to Zhang Qianlei. Lin Fengmian was already sweating. Even from afar, he could feel the majestic and intimidating power contained within the Wolf King. It was comparable to Hua Xia's top-notch martial arts. The Chitian monkey is comparable to an immortal state warrior. The Wolf King's cultivation should be beyond that. He might even be a half-step human immortal. Zhang Qianlei's face darkened. He used a secret spiritual technique to remind Jiang Tian to be careful. "I was just testing. I didn't use even 10% of my strength." Jiang Tian smiled calmly. "Let's begin." He punched out. This was his first real attack. Chapter 597. Jiang Tian's jade-white hand slowly clenched into a fist. He threw a punch that seemed slow but was actually fast towards the Wolf King. Boom! Suddenly, the seventh metal true essence formed a basketball-sized fist and punched out. The air was turbulent and the wind howled as if thousands of soldiers were galloping. The sound wave was like the roar of a real dragon. The fist let out thousands of rays of golden light and dyed the turbulence in the air golden. There were also Dao runes floating in the air, and each of them could kill a transcendent grandmaster. The phenomenal success 7th Metal Divine Body against the Moon Wolf. A level 7 Chi refinement cultivator against the most powerful overlord in Russia, the head instructor of the Winter Soldiers. The ultimate battle between the number 1 cultivator in Huaxia and the moon-worshipping Wolf King, who had been reclusive in Russia for decades, finally broke out. "I can kill you in 5 moves." Since Jiang Tian's rebirth, this was the first time he had encountered someone with such a heaven-defying physical body. His battle intent surged, and his black hair fluttered like a waterfall. His long robe fluttered in the wind. "Let's try it." The Wolf King let out a howl that sounded like a wolf's howl and continued to press forward. His desire to battle was wild, as if he wanted to destroy the heaven and earth. Boom! Under countless shocked gazes, the 7th metal fist and the alpha wolf's claw collided. Suddenly, the turbulence in the air was scattered. With the two of them as the center, a powerful shockwave was formed and spread in all directions. A 10-meter deep pit was formed where the two of them were standing. The shockwave spread out and the earth seemed to have been pushed by a bulldozer, exposing a new layer of soil. The surrounding stone houses crumbled one after another, sending rubble flying through the air. The people who watched the battle from a few hundred meters away could feel the terrifying pressure. Many towering trees trembled and swayed uneasily. Even Cass Lake, which was 10 kilometers away, had huge waves. The entire valley of the K tribe shook violently. It's terrifying. I can't believe the Alpha Wolf's attack is so powerful. Lin Fengmian's eyes were filled with shock. Swish. Boom. The Wolf King retreated more than 20 meters in the air, its feet firmly planted into the ground before it could stabilize its body. Looking at the wolf claw that had collided with his claw, it was already lacerated and bleeding, revealing the eerie white finger bones. However, Jiang Tian didn't move at all. His handsome face was calm and his white robe was spotless, indicating that he still had energy to protect his clothes. I can't believe that a boy from Huaxia has such a powerful body, the Alpha Wolf exclaimed. His voice was like thunder and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. Form. The flesh of the Alpha Wolf's claw wriggled and its skin and hair quickly recovered. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes when he saw this. The Alpha Wolf's body was indeed powerful. It was almost indestructible. It was comparable to the Tao body or the peak immortal state. Most importantly, he could recover rapidly, which was similar to the vampire race's immortal body. Was it because of his body or did he know some secret arts? Ah, beast, at least you have some eyes. Kneel down and admit defeat, and I'll spare your life. Jiang Tian sneered in disdain. Go to hell. The Alpha Wolf was furious. He immediately repaired the damage on his fist and rushed forward. As he waved his hands, wisps of cold moonlight gathered and formed a long saber in his hand. However, it was extremely sharp and heavy, like a curved silver moon. During the Battle of Leningrad, the Alpha Wolf had turned into an ordinary Soviet soldier and defeated an armored brigade of the German 18th Army with this moonlight blade. He waved the moonlight blade and charged at Jiang Tian again. Meanwhile, Jiang Tian stepped on the air and shot 100 meters into the air. A 20-meter-long gunmetal chi blade formed in his hand. He gripped the hilt of his saber tightly with both hands, raised it high above his head, and slashed down violently. Fuck. The Wolf King's heart suddenly tightened. He roared and raised his moonlight saber to block the attack with his muscular arms and hands. Clang. Under Jiang Tian's attack. Whether it was the moonlight blade that could cut a tank or the werewolf's body that was harder than steel, they couldn't withstand a single blow. The moonlight blade shattered like thin ice, and the fragments instantly dissipated into wisps of moon essence. A large wound dozens of centimeters deep appeared on the Alpha Wolf's left shoulder. Blood gushed out. Great. Master Kong is mighty. Domineering. Lin Fengmian, Zhu Jiangchao, Yuan Kursen, and the others cheered. Who was the Alpha Wolf? He was the chief instructor of the Winter Soldiers and the strongest man in Russia. It was like Miyamoto Genichi in Japan and Yi Tianren and his son in Huaxia. But he was still suppressed by Master Kong. Huang Linger's clear eyes rippled with the light of glory, and the corners of her mouth rose slightly. This was her man, who could suppress the strongest man in Russia. It was indeed a beautiful fight. His breakthrough this time has increased his combat power by more than 10 times. Even Zhang Qianlei stood up with excitement in his eyes. Old Dragon, Master Kong seems to be fighting? Should we go and help? Shi Lei, who was more than 3 meters tall, stood at the top of the cliff of the Blood Orchid Waterfall. He looked at the K tribe in the distance and frowned. If Master Kong doesn't take us to the K tribe to eat roasted monkeys and drink fruit wine, Old Dragon, I won't go. The dragon snake lay on its back in the deep pool under the waterfall, rubbing the dirt on its body with its tail and said lazily, Come on, you've eaten so many people in the K tribe. If you go, you'll scare them to death, right? Shi Lei frowned and complained. Humans are just insects. What's so strange about eating them? The old dragon was definitely a lazy guy. He yawned listlessly and said, Besides, Master Kong asked us to guard the blood orchid. He's so strong, so he should be able to deal with it. I just flew over to take a look. It's the American Blue Storm and the Russian Winter Soldier. Qing Linzi said worriedly, They're very strong. Strong? That's nothing. Let's go over and take them as our human pets. The dragon snake jumped up and stuck out its tongue excitedly, its eyes bursting with greed. At this moment, a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky and flew over. Several strong figures suddenly appeared. Damn, the old foe is here. The old dragon turned around and was immediately shocked. He subconsciously curled up as if he had seen a ghost. Qing Linzi's expression changed drastically, and he took a step back. Shirley's eyes were filled with shock and vigilance. Palace of Gods, the third king god, powerhouse on the power ranking, Athena. Second king god, the queen of heaven, powerhouse ranked 5th on the power ranking, Hera. Especially the last one, who made them even more fearful. Palace of Gods leader, powerhouse on the power ranking, Zeus. Behind them, there was a group of powerhouses with powerful auras and wearing medieval armor. Back then, you killed thousands of British colonial soldiers, but I didn't kill you. Instead, I let you live and let you be the guards of the blood orchid. But you don't seem to be doing your duty. Zeus walked in the air with holy light around his body. His voice, which sounded like the voice of the great Tao, was holy, mighty, and vast. It was as if he was overlooking the heroes from the ancient sky. Lord Zeus, we also want to do our duty, but Kong Techu is too strong. We're no match for him. Before Qing Linzi and Shirley could say anything, the old dragon wriggled his body forward and said with a fawning expression, "Master, I'm your loyal servant. I've been waiting here for more than 60 years, eating wild fruits and monkeys every day. I can't even bear to eat a leaf of the blood orchid. I've always been loyal. The sun and moon can be my witness." He prostrated himself at Zeus' feet and began to recount Jiang Tian's evil deeds. He cried bitterly and said, "But Kong Techu, this villain, didn't stomp on my cute and handsome head until it exploded. Is he stomping on my head? He's stomping on your honorable Lord Zeus' face. Hurry up and kill him and avenge me. Stinky worm, do you have any shame? A loyal servant doesn't serve a second master." Qing Linzi and Shirley were in a predicament. They knew that the old dragon was shameless, but they didn't expect the old dragon to be so shameless. Who was the one who swore to be Master Kang's obedient, cute, and loyal pet? I haven't even finished my sentence, and you're already like this? Where's your shame? Do you still have any shame? I've waited for decades. The blood orchid has finally matured. It even bore Orchid's son. Zeus stared at the few blood orchids on the cliff of the waterfall with a burning gaze, full of greed and excitement. Yes, they're waiting for you to pick them. Such a precious immortal herb, Jiang Taichu was but a mere mortal, yet he wanted to eat it? Was he even worthy? You're the only one who's worthy of her. The old dragon said with a flattering smile. But there seemed to be a few seals here. A strange look flashed across Zeus' face. He looked at the old dragon and said lightly, "Although I can forcibly break them, I might hurt those blood orchids. It's better for you to help pick them." That's right. Kong Techu is too cunning. Let us do it. The old dragon rolled his eyes and turned around, shouting at Qing Linzi, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help great god Zeus harvest." Qing Linzi had no choice. Zeus had once come to the blood orchid waterfall and suppressed them. All these years, even if they sat on the spirit spring and ate the leaves of the blood orchid, their cultivation level was still very slow. They were definitely no match for Zeus, who was supported by the entire Holy See and the European Union. When Shirley plucked a few immortal ascension blood arrow orchids, the old dragon suddenly twisted his body and shot up, entangling Zeus tightly. He shouted, "Birdman, run. Give them to Master Kong." "Bro, hold on." Qing Linzi flapped his wings and broke the sound barrier in an instant, flying towards the K tribe like a flash of lightning. "You're courting death." Zeus was furious. He waved his scepter and with a boom, electric light was produced and completely enveloped the old dragon. Boom! The dazzling electric light and extreme temperature were no less than the 9th heaven divine thunder summoned by Zhang Qianlei. In an instant, the old dragon's body was translucent. Even his internal organs and dragon bones were clearly visible. Black smoke billowed out and his scales were charred and fell off. However, his bloodline was special and his body was abnormally strong. He wouldn't die for a while. Although he was trembling and grimacing in pain, he still looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. This is a thunder tribulation. I'll take it as a tribulation. Come on, hit me with electricity. The numbness felt pretty good. Zeus, you old bastard, you killed my partner back then. I'll pester you to death. Chapter 598. Kill him. Seeing Qin Linzi flying further and further away, Zeus stomped on the old dragon's tail and smashed it into pieces. With a shake of his arms, he knocked the old dragon down. Then he flew up and kicked the old dragon 100 meters away. Yes. Athena's phoenix-like eyes were filled with killing intent. She leaned back, her sexy, fiery and vigorous body arched backward, and threw the strangely shaped spear in her hand like a javelin. The spear broke through 2 times the speed of sound and was about to catch up with Qin Linzi in a second. Suddenly, a loud noise was heard and half of the valley shook violently. A mighty figure soared into the sky, filled with the aura of the yellow earth. He threw a heavy punch at the spear. The long spear only slightly deviated, brushing past Qin Linzi's body and heavily shooting into a mountain peak. The mountain peak exploded and rocks flew everywhere. A 200-meter-tall mountain peak was razed to the ground. However, Shirley was thrown a few dozen meters away by the force of the spear and landed heavily on the ground. His fist and half of his arm were shattered and the remaining muscles were hanging down like silk. But seeing Qin Linzi had already reached the K tribe, he let out a relieved smile. At that moment, he heard the old dragon's useless cries and pleas from the bushes. Your Excellency Zeus, your loyal servant did something impulsive and offended the gods. But he has realized his mistake and is deeply regretting it. The old dragon's voice was trembling and sobbing. Please don't kill me. I am about to die. Why should you dirty your hands? How dare you, a little snake? Go to hell. Zeus's face was full of anger. He coldly snorted and waved his hand. A mountain peak more than 100 meters high collapsed. Rocks flew and rolled, covering the old dragon. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The next moment, he stepped on a blazing holy light and turned into a beam of light that pierced through the sky and shot toward the K tribe. The K tribe had been razed to the ground by Jiang Tian and Alexander the Wolf King. The Wolf King quickly healed his shoulder that was cut open. He roared crazily and made the moonlight converge into 2 cloud-like balls of light, lifting him up into the sky. Bang bang bang. Explosions rang out continuously, like continuous explosions of muffled thunder. The 2 of them exchanged blows in the air, each displaying their unique skills. Wolf King Alexander had been through hundreds of years of war and cultivated in the extreme north. His body was much stronger than Miyamoto Geniki's and immortal state warriors. He was as strong as a half-step human deity or a saint, and even stronger than Zhang Qianlei. He had roamed the world for 100 years. Whether it was his physical body, cultivation, vision, or experience, they had all reached the point of perfection. The 2 of them unleashed all kinds of divine abilities and secret techniques at their fingertips. Their movement techniques were also extremely fast. Apart from Zhang Qianlei, Hai Nu, and a few other people who could see it clearly, the onlookers could only see a golden divine radiance and a black storm colliding frequently in the air. Clang, clang. Every time the 2 of them collided, it was like the sound of a great bell, shaking the eardrums and shaking the hearts of the people. Boom. The 2 of them retreated 100 meters away from each other, putting some distance between them. Everyone saw that there was a fist-sized hole in the Wolf King's chest. White bones could be seen, and blood was gushing out of it. He was so tired that he was panting and trembling. The recovery speed of his body had slowed down and his strength was being worn down by Jiang Tian. However, Jiang Tian was still calm and his white robe was spotless. Apparently, he still had energy left. Let's beat this beast up. Zhu Jiangchao said excitedly. Is Master Kong going to win? Yuan Kursen asked behind a giant rock. Yes, the Wolf King is getting weaker. Master Kong will kill him in 10 minutes. Lin Fengmian's eyes were glittering with excitement. Swish. While the Wolf King was panting. Humph. You can stop your little tricks now. Jiang Tian suddenly pointed at the air and the finger aura went straight for the Caucasian Grand Shaman, the Prophet. Sure enough, you found out. But you can't kill me. Half a minute before Jiang Tian made his move, the Great Shaman, the Prophet, had a slight change in expression. Her figure flashed left and right as she retreated, cleverly dodging Jiang Tian's finger aura. The Prophet. It said that she has mastered the mysterious secret technique of time and can foresee everything that happens 1 minute in advance. The Sea Maiden and the others exclaimed, "How can Kong Techu kill him under such circumstances? Not bad. You can actually foresee. But how can you be my match with this little foresight technique of yours?" Seeing this scene, Jiang Tian's pupils suddenly shrank. A crazy battle intent rose from the corner of his mouth. He made a series of hand seals and shouted angrily, "You're forcing me to use my great divine ability, time stop." This was a great divine ability awakened after the completion of the gung metal divine physique. It could make time stop for a short time and then suddenly accelerate to restore balance. The gung metal divine physique was originally one of the 12 strongest immortal physiques in the cultivation world. It was the ultimate technique of the gung metal divine sect, a major cultivation sect of the human race in the starry sky. It had 9 transformations: myriad gold ancestor, indestructible golden body, isolation force field, eternal exile, and other 99 great divine abilities. These divine abilities were gradually activated as Jiang Tian's cultivation increased and his physique strengthened and transformed. The gung metal chi weapon was only the most basic one. But time stop was a powerful space-time divine ability. Once this divine ability was used, time within a 1-kilometer radius seemed to come to a standstill. Everything strangely came to a standstill. The wings of a huge long-legged mosquito suddenly stopped flapping and strangely floated in the air. The Wolf King had already waved his fist. The huge left wolf foot had already stepped out and stood on tiptoe as a support. But he was frozen on the ground in this posture like a sculpture. It was strange and peculiar. Zhang Qianlei noticed that it was Zhang Qianlei who drank the fruit wine, so he threw the wine bottle on the stone. At this moment, the wine and pottery shards that flew out still maintained their threatening posture. The bean-sized wine floated in the air, but did not fall down. The Great Shaman Prophet also had the same fate. She was like a robot who was pressed the pause button and was frozen in the air. 3 centimeters away from her face, a fly lifted its butt and was about to fly away. Its dense compound eyes reflected her horrified expression. The whole world was silent and turned into a still picture. They were panicking, but they knew that they could do nothing except think, and their senses were not sealed, including blinking their eyes and the weakest breath. You can foresee everything that will happen in a minute. But I'm sorry, my time stop is a minute and a half. Everyone looked on helplessly as Jiang Tian lazily walked up to the Prophet. They looked on helplessly as he took out a Gung Jin Chi blade and cut off the Prophet's neck with a chi sound. Wolf King, I don't know how many times you can condense your body without her healing technique. Jiang Tian was not in a hurry to kill the Wolf King. Instead, he gently pinched his fingers and the world suddenly moved. And it moved very fast, 10 times or 100 times faster than usual, making the world reach a new balance. The headless body of the Great Shaman Prophet spurted out blood arrows and fell to the ground. Zhang Qianlei's wine and pottery fragments shot into the ground like arrows. The green-headed fly flying in front of the Great Shaman was instantly thrown far away. Oh my God! What secret technique did he use just now? Did he control time? He stopped time, exceeding the 1 minute that the Prophet predicted in advance. Kill her. This is the real time stop technique. Even if it's only 90 seconds, it's too terrifying. The Sea Lady, the Golden War General, and the other experts were all shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear and shock, and they gasped as if they had seen a ghost. Heaven, earth, mountains, and rivers froze, and the stars, sun, and moon stopped. Zhang Qianlei frowned and pondered. Then he slapped his thigh and exclaimed excitedly, Kong Teichu's supernatural power is comparable to that of Chuanzhen's founder, Lu Chunyang, perfected Lu. Could it be that he has already stepped into the realm of Earth Golden Immortal? As Jiang Tian pinched his fingers, the Wolf King suddenly accelerated uncontrollably and rushed toward Jiang Tian at twice the speed of sound. Without the great shaman to heal you, I can kill you with one strike. Jiang Tian snorted and waved his fingers. A 20-meter-long Gingjin energy blade slashed down. Even though the Wolf King Alexander quickly dodged, he was still too slow. With a shrill scream, his right arm was cut off from the shoulder by Jiang Tian's blade. Billowing waves of blood spurted out like a fountain. Ouch! The Wolf King was sent flying 100 meters away. He was in so much pain that his eyes almost popped out. He looked up at the sky and howled. The protruding veins on his forehead throbbed wildly and his eyes were fierce and ferocious. But this time, even though he had performed a secret art to stop the bleeding, he didn't form a new arm. Just when everyone thought that Jiang Tian was going to win quickly. Suddenly, Zhang Qianlei looked in the direction of the Blood Orchid waterfall and said coldly, "An overlord is coming." "Don't worry. Master Kong has set up a defensive array there. Let's watch the show. Watch Master Kong fight. It's so interesting," Lin Fengmian said leisurely and excitedly. "The defensive array is useless. I'm afraid it's the world's top thunder master, Zeus, who is here." Zhang Qianlei's eyes were full of fighting spirit, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Boom, boom. A few loud noises came from above the Blood Orchid waterfall. First, Qing Linzi arrived at lightning speed and knelt on the ground. He held a few mature blood orchids in his hands and handed them to Jiang Tian. "The Palace of Gods is here. The Palace of Gods." In an instant, the whole place was silent. All the overlords from the east and west were shocked. "Shi Lei and Old Dragon are injured?" Only Jiang Tian looked calm. He put the blood arrow orchid into his storage ring and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He then scanned the distance with his divine sense. In the sky, numerous figures flew across the void and shot over. Each and every one of them looked extremely holy. They were clad in armor from the Middle Ages and radiated with dazzling light. It was as if numerous suns were lining up in the sky. "The Palace of Gods is here." The Wolf King looked at Zeus and the overlords from the Palace of Gods with a complicated expression. Chapter 599. The werewolves had a deep connection with the Palace of the Gods. The werewolves and vampires were known as the dark alien races. In the Middle Ages of Western Europe, where plagues were rampant and technology was not yet developed, they were once very popular. They easily massacred cities, destroyed countries, and controlled the political power of small secular countries. But because of his bloodthirsty and cruel nature, he was not tolerated by the world. At that time, the experts of the Holy See and the demon hunters treated them as heretics and suppressed them. The war between the two sides lasted for 300 years and lasted for many days. According to statistics, in the 16th century, there were about 30,000 people in France alone who were thought to be werewolves or members of the Blood Clan. They were either hanged or burned at the stake by the Holy See. But at that time, the werewolves and blood breeds would still be able to compete with the Holy See and survive in the cracks. The true decline of the werewolves occurred after the Industrial Revolution and the rise of modern weaponry. During the First World War, the Palace of Gods and the Divine Temple Knights, who were supported by the Church, cooperated with the secular government and the army. They made use of the power of modern weapons and equipment to wipe out the werewolves and blood breeds from Western Europe. The young Wolf King and the entire moon-worshipping wolf clan were forced to migrate to the desolate Siberian highlands, where they lived a miserable life with no food to fill their stomachs. It wasn't until the outbreak of World War I and World War II that some werewolves gradually chose to cooperate with the Russian military to gain some living space. But even so, the werewolves were still not truly recognized by the Russian military. They were still guarded against and ostracized. On the battlefield, they were assigned the cruelest missions with the highest casualty rate. They were cannon fodder. It was only when Xiaobin escaped to Russia in the 1990s that genetic technology was on the rise that Xiaobin suggested to the Northern Army that they should combine martial arts, wolf genes, and modern military equipment to form the Winter Army. Only then did the moon-worshipping wolf clan obtain the status they deserved. This was also the reason why the Wolf King still treated Xiaobin as his best friend even though his combat strength was far inferior to the Wolf King's. But for Zeus, who had once driven his tribe out of Europe, the Wolf King's feelings were much more complicated. Jealousy, hatred, reverence, and fear. Most of the temple knights were middle-aged men, each of them brimming with vitality and strength. Each of them had reached the sage plane, which was comparable to Hua Xia's martial Dao grandmasters and even immortal state warriors. They had wavy blonde hair and azure eyes that were as blue as the Atlantic Ocean. The men were very valiant, like gods descending from the heavens. The women were beautiful, so perfect that they were a bit flirtatious. Any one of them could be the cover model of a fashion magazine. The crosses on their chests, their golden armor, and their weapons radiated a holy light. This was a group of noble humans. Every one of them had an extraordinary identity and background. Many of them had been conferred nobility by the royal family, and their titles were hereditary. Their bloodlines were noble, and they had glorious pasts. Zeus, Hera, and Athena, 3 supreme chief gods and 14 temple knights. Seeing this, the Winter Soldiers and Blue Storm showed deep fear. They bowed slightly to show the highest respect. As soon as Zeus, the 3 overgods, and the 14 temple knights appeared, they immediately suppressed their might. Compared to Zeus and the others, the Winter Soldiers were like a group of uncivilized beasts. Blue Storm, on the other hand, was overshadowed like a beggar in ragged clothes on the street. Zeus and the others weren't just for show. They were actually a level stronger. The Pantheon's history was almost as long as the Holy See, and their foundation was unimaginably deep. Blue Storm was only 100 years old, and the Winter Soldiers only had a few decades of history. Even with the support of the entire country, their strength couldn't compare to the Pantheon's. Professor, Prophet? Have these poor children been sacrificed? Queen of Heaven Hera wore a golden robe from the Middle Ages. Her perfect face shone with a loving divine radiance, looking like a Virgin Mary. Looking at the bloodstains on the ground, she was full of sympathy. She shook her head helplessly. Wolf King, Zeus warned you and hoped that you would cooperate with us. But you were stubborn. We underestimated Kong Techu's strength. It seems that only Lord Zeus can kill him. The Wolf King bowed deeply and took a few steps back. Then all the powerhouses bowed and retreated, expressing their highest respect to Zeus and the others, leaving the battlefield to Zeus and the others. Kong Techu, I was the first to discover the blood orchid. Hand it over. Finally, Zeus spoke. Like a god looking down on an ant, he demanded directly, as if it was only right and proper. You want it? Defeat me first. Otherwise, scram back to your lair. Jiang Tian said indifferently. Demon, you dare defy the will of the gods? In the name of the gods, I command you to hand it over. Zeus was enraged as he slammed his golden scepter on the ground. Suddenly, lightning flashed in his eyes, and a powerful aura surged toward Jiang Tian. Gods? To you, I'm the god. You're using my will to command me? What a joke. Jiang Tian's expression was cold. And you don't know what's good for you. Before Zeus could say anything, a temple knight stepped forward and looked at Jiang Tian provocatively. He shouted with a proud face, Jiang Tian. In the name of the gods, I will burn your dirty and depraved soul. Repent. He held a giant cross in his hand and pressed it down on Jiang Tian. A sacred and bright light fell on Jiang Tian. At this moment, Jiang Tian was a little curious. What was that light? Were they really gods or the descendants of gods? However, as soon as he scanned with his divine will, Jiang Tian burst into laughter. His cross was inlaid with a rare crystal. The ancient alchemists had also carved ancient patterns on the cross, similar to Hua Xia's talisman inscriptions. The talisman inscriptions could stimulate the energy contained in the crystal. The destructive power of the light was indeed shocking. It was comparable to the electromagnetic waves of gamma rays and could easily kill a transcendent grandmaster. However, it was far less powerful than lasers. In essence, it was similar to witchcraft and dharma spells. It was not a miracle. It must have been used by the ancient Holy See to confuse believers. The purpose of killing enemies was secondary. If this thing could hurt Jiang Tian, he would have wasted 10,000 years of his previous life and 3 years of his current life. Stop playing tricks. Get out of here. After his divine will found out what was going on, Jiang Tian slapped without hesitation. Boom. Under Jiang Tian's palm, whether it was the holy light cross, the armor, or even the ancient shield that was engraved with Taoist patterns, they all shattered within a second. The paladin's chest caved in and his internal organs were crushed. He was thrown a few dozen meters away and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood with pieces of his organs. Kang Teichu, you are indeed a talent. Ta, the Queen of Heaven, was startled. Then, her face softened and said condescendingly like a god talking to her own people. If you surrender, hand over the blood orchid and submit to the sacred hall, we are willing to let you go. Kang Teichu, even if you are the most powerful man in Huaxia, you are no match for Zeus. Athena, who was both respectful and fearful of Jiang Tian on the cloud-watching peak, now had an arrogant expression on her face. She slightly raised her chin and looked down at Jiang Tian as if she was looking at an ant that she could easily crush. We are giving you a chance, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You have to cherish it. Otherwise, you will die. She knew that she was no match for Jiang Tian, but once Zeus made a move, it would be a different story. The Palace of Gods had a long history and was closely associated with the Holy See. Huaxia had been poor and weak in recent years. Almost all of its heritage had been plundered and destroyed by the flames of war. After a few major upheavals such as the Four Olds, all kinds of inheritances were almost cut off. How could Jiang Tian compare to Zeus? Surrender? You are just a bunch of ants. How dare you make me surrender? Jiang Tian snorted disdainfully. Stubborn. Then go to hell. Hera was very angry, and her charming face abruptly turned cold. Kill him. Grind his bones to dust and send his soul to purgatory. Athena was as beautiful as a flower and as beautiful as the moon. Her appearance could be said to be perfect, but her words were cold and vicious. Kang Teichu, you have offended the people and warriors of God. Go to hell. In the name of God, kill this devil of Middle-earth. There were angry roars and shouts. 13 broadswords, each as tall as a person, came slashing down. Light poured down like a waterfall. Clang. These were night swords. Some were filled with blood chi while others were filled with sacred light. They were all made by famous alchemists in the Middle Ages and had been tempered thousands of times. Mysterious scriptures were engraved on them. Each of them could cut through metal and easily kill transcendent grandmasters. They were the precious inheritances of noble families and had a glorious past. Their ancestors were knights of the Temple of God and the Holy See. Some were even members of the Red Crusade and had made great contributions. Their inheritances were still there and their glory was undiminished. Their bloodlines were noble and powerful. These paladins usually had their own duties and properties and rarely worked together to kill enemies. They knew the most powerful overlord in Huaxia was there, so they gathered together to kill Sidoni. The power of their joint attacks seemed to be able to crack the world. There were clangs of swords and dragon roars. Everyone's armor was emitting holy light, as if 13 suns were blooming in the sky. It was dazzling and bright, illuminating the night sky. 13 gigantic streaks of sword chi tore through the sky like the Milky Way. What a powerful sword chi and sacred light. Seeing this, many overlords were shocked. Even if the Winter Soldiers develop for another 20 years, they won't be able to catch up with the power of the Temple Knights. Seeing this, the Wolf King, who had already retreated, was envious and a serious look appeared on his face. It's comparable to our attack. Even Hera, the Queen of Heaven, nodded with a smile and praised. This is the first time in 50 years that 13 Temple Knights have attacked together. Last time, it was to kill the Duke of Filthy Blood. Jiang Taichu is indeed very strong, But even if he's a half-step human immortal from China, with the strength of a human immortal, he can't withstand the combined attack of 13 paladins. Athena was full of confidence after seeing this and snorted. Her facial features were perfect and she was surrounded by a halo. She was as beautiful as a goddess and flashed with the light of wisdom. But she didn't know. Right now, Jiang Tian had broken through a level, as if crossing the abyss of heaven, long different from the past. These idiots still don't understand that the difference in level can't be reversed. In response, Jiang Tian shook his head and lightly smiled. Then, there was only one movement, a flick of his finger. Chapter 600. Every time he flicked his finger, a wave of dazzling gunmetal energy swords flew through the air, forming a dense mass. Numerous gunmetal chi swords spread out in the shape of a fan, sweeping out in all directions like the waves of an ocean, boundless like the sea. The clanging sound was like a dragon's roar and thunder, echoing between heaven and earth. This was also the result of reaching the late stage of chi refinement. It turned out that Jiang Tian's finger flashes were less than a tenth of these energy swords. A burst of bloody light appeared. The 13 divine hall knights who possessed ancient bloodlines and were equipped with defensive saint artifacts all shattered in an instant. Whether it was the sword light, the armor, or even the golden greatswords in their hands, they were all reduced to dust in an instant. This was a shocking scene. Jiang Tian only flicked his finger, shattering 13 waves of golden sword light like a nuclear explosion. 13 divine temple knights died in the blink of an eye, turning into balls of bloody light while the others were reduced to dust. This was absolute intimidation. Whether it was the Winter Soldiers or Blue Storm, they all felt their hearts tremble. Only now did they realize that Jiang Tian hadn't used his full strength at all. Otherwise, they would have been wiped out long ago. What? He killed 14 divine temple knights in a row. Zeus and the other 2 sovereigns couldn't believe it. Their expressions changed drastically. They didn't expect this at all. These days, he had been studying Jiang Tian's information. They all agreed that Jiang Tian should be above the immortal realm, but below the saint and human immortal realm. After the Winter Soldiers and Blue Storm showed no intention of cooperating, he summoned these divine temple knights, thinking that it would be enough to kill Jiang Tian. He just needed to cover the rear. He didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so powerful. He had definitely stepped into the human immortal stage, otherwise how could he summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand? The 3 core gods were visibly moved. Their hearts were in great pain, and they felt like they were bleeding. The divine temple knights were second only to the 12 sovereigns. They were an elite force. 1 dead was 1 less, and they couldn't be replicated. Zeus, are you and your divine temple knights all so stupid? After killing 13 divine knights in an instant, Jiang Tian's expression was calm. He stood in the pool of blood and said with disdain, "Their cultivations are comparable to the deity realm and half-deity realm, but on the incense cauldron peak, I once killed 11 deities in a row. How stupid! I just don't get it. Ants will always be ants. They can't shake a lion or a tiger. There's no difference between a group and a single one. Kong Teichu, you deserve to die." Being ridiculed by Jiang Tian like this, Zeus was both shocked and angry. He took a step forward, and a vast ocean of holy light burst out, blooming all over his body. At this moment, the divine energy in his body instantly became 100 times denser and stronger. Everyone could feel the terrifying pressure. He used a secret technique from the Middle Ages, looked up at the sky and chanted an incantation, "Lightning of order, descend." He raised the golden scepter in his hand, which was embedded with a crystal stone the size of a chicken egg. It was extremely rare and precious, a treasure passed down from the Holy See. At this moment, it was constantly flickering. As the crystal stone flashed, an extremely bright lightning bolt fell from the sky. The scale of the lightning was so large that it almost covered half of the sky above Cass Lake. The lightning in a few hundred meters was intertwined with the lightning of order, like an ocean. The ocean of lightning kept gathering and condensing, almost forming a mountain of lightning that enveloped Jiang Tian. This was a terrifying scene. Thousands of lightning bolts fell like a waterfall. Any one of them could kill a transcendent grandmaster and severely injure an immortal state grand cultivator. But at this moment, there were so many lightning bolts that it was impossible to count them all. It was as if there was nothing else in the world except for lightning. Is this the power of Zeus? How terrifying! Blue Storm and the Winter Soldiers were shocked. They called out to their companions and quickly retreated 3 kilometers. This ocean of lightning could turn an area of a kilometer into ashes. They couldn't withstand it at all. Zeus is really powerful. Even the Wolf King Alexander revealed a look of fear. Even the goddess of sea was shocked and felt inferior. She could also summon storms and generate lightning, but it was only 1% as powerful as Zeus. After receiving Jiang Tian's order, Qing Linzi and dozens of green-scale fire owls grabbed the others and flew away to avoid the attack. Zeus is so powerful. He can create an ocean of lightning with one attack. Seeing this, Zhang Qianlei also stood up in shock and looked up, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Zeus's thunder art was as powerful as his. It could easily kill an immortal state warrior and suppress a mortal deity. Secret art of the heavenly master sect, thunder controlling divine art. Zhang Qianlei stomped his feet, and his feet sank 5 centimeters into the ground. His face turned red, and his trembling hands struggled to make a mysterious finger incantation, performing the secret technique of the celestial master sect to block the attack for Jiang Tian. However, when he executed the lightning-controlling divine art, he only managed to pull a third of the lightning into the ground. The rest of the lightning was still enveloping Jiang Tian, tearing and strangling. Again! Break! In the continuous roar, Zhang Qianlei's black hair fluttered in the wind. He made a series of hand gestures and pulled more lightning. Puff! This kind of spell consumed a lot of energy. Even though he was a half-step human deity, he was so tired that he spurted out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and he was about to collapse. Brother Zhang, that's enough. Let me do it. Facing the lightning bolts, Jiang Tian took a step forward. He looked at Zeus with pride and said, "You are a god. Zeus, you're so ruthless. You're forcing me to use my divine powers. Ha, Kong Teichu, in this world, no one can break my law of thunder punishment. No one can resist my divine powers, not even you." Looking at the sea of lightning falling, Zeus's face was calm and sacred. He held the scepter in his hand and ordered Jiang Tian. Victory was in his hands. The secret art had been used. It was like pressing the button of a nuclear explosion, waiting for the mushroom cloud to bloom and the enemy to scream. So what if you're a genius? Countless geniuses like you have died in the hands of Lord Zeus. If you resist to the end, you will only be bombarded into powder by this sea of lightning. Athena threatened arrogantly. In her opinion, Zeus's attack was decisive and overbearing, and it was effective. He didn't test Jiang Tian's strength at all. Instead, he used the deadly secret art of the Sea of Lightning to catch Jiang Tian off guard and finish him in one fell swoop. It was said that during the First World War, Zeus had used this secret art to kill 12 dukes of the kindred in an instant. Dukes of the kindred were equivalent to immortal state warriors or even half-step human deities. How could Jiang Tian resist it? Law. Divine powers. Ha, you call a few lightning bolts with a broken stone? You call that a law and a divine powers? Jiang Tian's face was full of contempt. He snorted and said, "I'll show you what a real divine powers is." In the blink of an eye, the Sea of Lightning was only a few meters away from Jiang Tian. Divine-level divine powers, secret art of space, eternal banishment. Jiang Tian shouted in a low voice. His black hair fluttered like a waterfall, and his eyes were full of fighting spirit. He made a series of hand seals. Boom! A pitch-black space suddenly appeared in this area. It was distorted and chaotic, and it was unimaginably deep. It was like a space-time abyss and a crack. It was like a wormhole that could connect to another space-time. Pitch black. Mysterious. All the light disappeared and was swallowed in an instant. There was no reflection at all. What is this? Zeus was startled as an unprecedented sense of crisis welled up in his heart. He had lived for more than 100 years and had never been defeated. He had seen all kinds of secret arts. However, the method that Jiang Tian used was something that he had never seen or heard of before. Even though he was more than 200 meters away from Jiang Tian, he still felt that he was going to be swallowed by the pitch-black space. He felt that he was going to fall into it uncontrollably and be lost forever. Eternal banishment is a divine-level divine ability that involves secret arts of space. Only soul formation cultivators can activate it. Jiang Tian covered the black hole with his hands. His face was expressionless as he sighed and said, "I'm only at the late stage of the Qi refinement stage. I can't use it at all. I can only simulate an area with a radius of 10 centimeters. But even if I can simulate a little bit of it, I can achieve instantaneous space transfer and send the lightning into the dimensional space, sealing it forever and destroying it from this space-time." Under everyone's incredulous gaze, the sea of lightning was swallowed by the pitch-black hole in an instant. It was a weird scene. The sea of lightning was huge and the hole was small. However, it gave people the feeling that the sea of lightning was like a thin stream flowing into a scorching desert and was absorbed in the blink of an eye. Well, that's terrifying. The overlords from all over the world were dumbfounded. Their bodies and minds were gripped by deep fear and they felt cold from head to toe. Is this a man-made wormhole? Creating a wormhole with a human body and dermic powers is almost mythical. Some members of Blue Storm who were proficient in modern physics widened their eyes as if they had seen a ghost. The divine ability and secret art Jiang Tian used was almost demonic. No matter how terrifying the opponent was, they could be banished. Once they entered the boundless and unknown dimensional space, there was no turning back. Their lives would be exhausted and dry up. "No, I have to go." Zeus' heart trembled when he saw that. A strong sense of danger surged in his heart. Without another word, he summoned a beam of holy light and turned into an earth-shattering stream of light, shooting into the distance. "You're running away without saying goodbye again." Hera was speechless and quickly retreated. As for Athena and the other overlords, they were even more dumbfounded and could not believe it. Zeus, the invincible overlord, the #1 overlord on the Dark Roll and almost the #1 overlord in the West, just ran away after a single attack? It's useless. When I used this divine ability, your fate was already decided. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and shook his head regretfully. The black hole in his hand vibrated slightly. As expected, Zeus, who had already flown a few hundred meters, felt as if he had fallen into a pool of sticky glue. His body suddenly became sluggish as if the air around him had solidified, preventing him from moving forward. In the end, the holy light under his feet gushed out to the extreme. His body, secret arts, aura, dermic artifacts, and holy items were all pushed to the extreme. He used all kinds of methods, but still, he could not move forward an inch. At that moment, Zeus began to fly backward uncontrollably. In a flash, he flew to the side of the hole between Jiang Tian's fingers. Chapter 601. What happened next made their hearts palpitate. It was a nightmare they would never forget for the rest of their lives. It was like a special effect in a movie. First, it was the corner of his clothes, an arm, half of his body, his head, and then Zeus' entire body. Bit by bit, he was devoured and annihilated by the deep black hole. No! Finally, with a shrill scream, Zeus was folded into the pitch-black void and exiled for eternity. Except for the scepter that Jiang Tian deliberately left on the ground, not even a speck of dust or ash was left behind. The #1 master on the power rankings for decades, the #1 master in the pantheon of gods, Zeus, had fallen. At this moment, the whole valley was dead silent. The hearts of all the experts trembled. Their souls were about to leave their bodies because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Kong Techu actually killed Zeus, the #1 master in the West? Wolf King Alexander's body and voice were trembling. His eyes were filled with fear as if he had seen a ghost. The divine power Jiang Tian displayed was simply unimaginable. It was like a real god. Even Zeus was exiled for eternity by him. Who in the world can stop him? The Sea Lady and the Masters of Blue Storm were trembling. They looked at Jiang Tian with fear and horror. This is too scary. Masters at the level of Catherine, the founder of the butterfly skeleton, were so scared that they wet themselves. Zeus was at the level of a true saint. He was equivalent to a human immortal in Huaxia. He had the inheritance of the Holy Sea and was unbelievably powerful. Since the beginning of the first battle, he had been undefeated. He had topped the CIA power rankings dozens of times. He was the only master in the world. Moreover, he had the backing of the Holy See, which had a history of thousands of years. He had many secret techniques, sacred weapons, and inheritances. However, such a domineering and invincible master had been exiled to the dimensional space by Jiang Tian and annihilated. At this moment, who would challenge Jiang Tian? You don't want to submit? Jiang Tian asked coldly as he looked at Athena, who was standing in a daze and panicking in the wind. Athena felt as if she was being stared at by the Grim Reaper, and the blood in her body froze. For a moment, she didn't know whether to fight to the death or to kneel and beg for mercy. Then go to hell. Jiang Tian's face darkened, and he flicked his finger. The gunmetal chi sword that contained Tao patterns bloomed like a golden flower. It spread out like a fan, and the golden light was resplendent and beautiful. However, his attack power was terrifying. The gunmetal chi sword carried an ear-piercing howl as it flew through the air. Bang! Athena's head exploded, and her body was pierced through like a sieve. Blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. What? Kill him in one strike. Master Kong, Hera submits to you. Please, Master Kong, let me go this once. The Pantheon will never seek revenge. Heavenly Queen Hera sucked in a breath of cold air, trembling as she knelt down. Her beautiful face lost all color, and her graceful and luxurious face was deathly pale. Her combat power was on par with Athena's. If Jiang Tian wanted to kill her, it would only take a flick of his finger. We submit. Many of the Winter Soldiers and Blue Storm warriors knelt on the ground. They trembled like subjects meeting their king, and their eyes were filled with fear. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Master Kong, the Winter Soldiers, submit. If we see Grandmaster Jiang again, we will avoid him and will not fight him. In the end, Wolf King Alexander knelt on one knee and lowered his rebellious head. The Wolf clan was cruel and bloodthirsty. They were very vengeful, united, and persistent. But now, his confidence had been shattered. That little bit of vengeance had long drifted beyond the 9 heavens. A warrior clan worshipped the strong the most. Now, Jiang Tian had displayed strength that far exceeded Zeus, and it made him fear and worship Jiang Tian. Therefore, he submitted without hesitation. Master Kang won. From now on, who in the whole world will dare to be Master Kang's enemy? Seeing this, Lin Fengmian's heart surged, and his heroic spirit soared. He felt that today's battle would definitely be remembered in history. The golden armor general formed by Jiang Tian's spirit energy killed one of the 5 giants of the Blue Storm, Professor, who was ranked 6th on the power rankings, in a matter of seconds before declaring war. After that, he killed Ivan the Hammer of Siberia, Prehanova the Ice Witch, Gar the Wolf, and other giants of the power rankings. The Wolf King Alexander and the Winter Soldiers Wolf Clan genetic warriors attacked together, but they were still almost wiped out by Jiang Tian. In the battle against the Wolf King, even if the Wolf King had the help of the Caucasus Grand Shaman Prophet, he was still discovered by Jiang Tian. Using the secret technique of time stop, Jiang Tian cut off one of the Wolf King's arms. In the end, he used a great magical power to open a space passage and banished Zeus to eternity. He crushed the saints and reached the top in one step. Especially the eternal banishment ability, which made Zeus, the strongest in the West, completely disappear from this world. Not even a drop of his remains was left. This was simply miraculous. It didn't seem like a power that a human could display. Controlling time suspension, connecting to the dimensional space and opening a dimensional passage, banishing the opponent to the depths of the unknown universe and sinking them into eternal desolation and annihilation. Just thinking about it sent chills down one's spine. Get lost. Jiang Tian said indifferently. Master Kong, we'll take our leave first. Hera, Wolf King Alexander, the Sea Lady, and the other experts looked at each other with fear in their eyes. They slowly got up and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian. The group slowly dispersed like the tide. Cough, cough. When everyone was far away, Jiang Tian dispersed the ball of emptiness. He covered his mouth with his hand and coughed violently. Every time he coughed, he spat out a stream of black blood. His breathing was weak, and his black hair turned gray and withered. In the end, his hair was completely white, and his skin was wrinkled. He looked like an old man with one foot in the grave, a lamp about to run out of oil. Jiang Tian, what happened to you? Seeing Jiang Tian on the verge of collapsing, Huang Linger hurriedly flew over and supported Jiang Tian. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Sigh, Brother Jiang has consumed a lot of his energy in this battle. Zhang Qianlei flew over. Seeing this, he was filled with worry. That God-tier skill was forcefully cast by me. It consumed a lot of my primordial qi. Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed. His face became paler. In this battle, he had used up a lot of energy 3 times. The first time, he used his divine sense to control Thorpe and the other commanders to attack the Glacier Bear. Luckily, he immediately killed the Golden Armored General and absorbed the professor's spiritual energy to replenish his energy. The second time, he used the Great Skill Time Suspension. He had only just begun to activate this skill. With his current cultivation, he couldn't use it flexibly. The consumption of primordial qi, divine sense, and physique was no small matter. The third time, he used the God-tier great skill, Eternal Banishment. This was a spatial skill that could only be used by soul formation stage cultivators. Even though he had only simulated a small space, it still consumed a lot of his primordial qi. What should we do? Can we use my secret healing technique to heal him? Huang Linger was anxious. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I also have a few great medicines for healing and nurturing the primordial spirit. I snatched them from Chuanzhen's sect and Shenong's sect. Zhang Qianlei also took out a few porcelain bottles and stuffed them all to Jiang Tian. He didn't care about those priceless pills at all. Don't worry, I'm fine. Jiang Tian took out a red orchid fruit and swallowed it. His body straightened up and his qi started to recover. The orchid fruit contained surging spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It quickly replenished Jiang Tian's primordial qi and mended his broken meridians. Soon, like a miracle, his body straightened up. His shriveled and sunken skin swelled up and became rosy and translucent. Peace and quiet returned to the forest. Jiang Tian slowly stood up when the sun rose. He had already recovered about 70 to 80% of his primordial qi. Sigh, looks like I still have to work hard for a while. The battle with Zeus was really a close call. Jiang Tian stood up and shook his head with a sigh. Jiangtan, let's go back home. Huang Linger urged with a nervous expression. Jiang Tian seemed to have aged several decades in an instant. She was really scared out of her wits. She always felt that it would be safer to go back home. Yeah, Master Kong, the military warship that the Chinese military sent to welcome the overseas citizens has already arrived at Sidoni Harbor. At the very least, it's very safe on the warship, Zhu Jiangchao said with an urgent expression. After all, Zhu Jiangchao had once served in the War Dragon Legion, so he knew the significance of the world's most powerful beings. It could be said that in the eyes of Russia, the European Union, and the United States, powerful beings like Wolf King Alexander, Zeus, and the Professor were no less important than strategic superweapons. And now Jiang Tian had severely injured the Wolf King and killed Zeus and the Professor. This would definitely incur the wrath of the major countries and make Jiang Tian a thorn in their side. Jiang Tian shook his head lightly and said with a long gaze, "You guys go back home first. I still have a lot of things to do. I have to stay in Sidoni for a while." Huang Linger looked worried. "Don't worry about me. I can definitely protect myself by myself." Jiang Tian looked at the sky leisurely and said, "Maybe it's time to start building my own country." April 15, 2010, nighttime. Sidoni, the lakeside of Cass Lake. Kong Taechu killed the prophet, Athena, and dozens of other powerful beings on the power rankings. He exploded the professor's head, exiled Zeus, and broke the Wolf King's arm. He single-handedly trampled on Winter Soldier, Blue Storm, and the Pantheon, the three most powerful organizations in the world. When the news spread, the world was shocked. In history, this night was known as the Night of the Falling Stars. The one-armed Wolf King Alexander returned to Russia with a desolate expression. That day, Hera, the Sea Lady, and the others returned to their respective organizations in a daze. All the major countries in the Western world were shrouded in uneasiness and shock. There was a deathly silence. Winter Soldier, Blue Storm, and the Pantheon were all top-notch organizations in their respective countries. But this time, nearly 200 top-notch experts, including Zeus and the Professor, had perished. This was tantamount to a magnitude 12 earthquake, stunning everyone. Chapter 602. Number 1 on the power ranking, the leader of the gods in the Pantheon, Zeus. Number 6 on the power ranking, one of the creators of Blue Storm, Professor. Number 12 on the power ranking, one of the 12 main gods, Athena. Number 8 on the power ranking, the Caucasus Great Shaman, Prophet. Ice Witch, Green Demon, Ivan, the Siberian Hammer, Wolfgar. One by one, the bright stars in the night sky fell and disappeared. Each and every one of them was a peerless powerhouse that shocked the entire world, but they were all killed by Jiang Tian in a single battle. This lineup that could only be described as heaven-defying was almost completely wiped out. This filled them with fear toward the name Kong Taechu, and tore their confidence to shreds. America, Russia, France, England. Many military and super powerhouse management departments held secret meetings overnight to understand and analyze this far-reaching battle and discuss countermeasures. Moscow, Red Square, Kremlin. What? The polar bears were wiped out, and the winter soldiers suffered heavy losses. How is this possible? The Northern Army's commander, Yevsky, looked at the wounded Wolf King Alexander and the elite winter soldiers in shock. He exclaimed in disbelief, "Tell me what happened on the battlefield again." Who was Wolf King Alexander? He had the bloodline of the Wolf clan and had killed the Hydra Arcana group during World War II. Like a star, he was undefeated, never withered, and shone brilliantly. He was the guardian of Russia's glaciers. How could such a powerhouse and hundreds of winter soldiers lose to Kong Taechu? In fact, many of the powerhouses from the Pantheon and Blue Storm died as well. A hint of fear flashed in Wolf King Alexander's eyes. Even though the battle had been going on for a few days, he still had lingering fears when he thought about it. "Your Excellency, please take a look." A subordinate took out an encrypted computer and placed it on the commander-in-chief's desk. He clicked on a video. There was no need to explain. The winter soldiers were equipped with modern battlefield information collection and transmission systems, and the battle had been recorded. This is spirit power? His spirit power can already condense into a shape? When Yevsky saw the professor being killed by a golden-armored immortal general, his expression changed drastically, and he was shocked. He's so fast. I can't see clearly. When he saw Green Devil, Sea Lady, Snow Wind Witch, and Siberian Hammer attack together, but they were all killed by Jiang Tian, Yevsky's majestic body couldn't help but tremble. "Commander-in-Chief, this has been slowed down by 10 times. The intelligence officer explained in a trembling voice. In fact, the other battlefield capture systems didn't capture a clear image. Only a few soldiers equipped with high-speed cameras managed to capture the footage. When they saw Jiang Tian killing the winter soldiers, who had spent countless resources to cultivate them, like cutting melons and vegetables, they were shocked. The corners of Yevsky's eyes twitched. His heart was bleeding, and cold sweat appeared on his face. His heart ached. He had spent a lot of money to train these winter soldiers. Each one of them cost a few million USD. But now, he was terrified. If Jiang Tian wanted to, he could destroy the entire defense system of the Kremlin in 10 minutes. God help me, what is that black thing? How can it devour such a large amount of lightning? When he saw Lehi and Zeus being devoured by the black hole, Yevsky, who had participated in the defense of Stalingrad and grew up in a sea of blood, jumped up from his chair as if he had been stung by a scorpion. He was like a child who had been frightened by a poisonous snake. He screamed, "Can someone tell me where Zeus went? Why did he suddenly disappear?" His whole body trembled, and his scream sounded like he was about to cry. Our battlefield scientists have analyzed the video. They think that it might be an unknown substance similar to a wormhole. Wolf King Alexander no longer had his strength and arrogance. His face was extremely serious, and his voice was dry. It was difficult for him to speak. The video ended, but the commander-in-chief was even more terrified. He stood there dumbfounded. After a long time, he regained his composure. He looked at the heroes with his majestic eyes and said in a low voice, "This video must not be leaked." He said, "It will be classified as a top-secret document for 100 years. Sir, everyone knew what the consequences would be if this video was exposed. The current world order would undergo a historical change and deviate from its original path." The next moment, he picked up the phone on the desk and said with a serious face, "Connect me to Mr. President's office. I need to report something important to Mr. President immediately." After walking out of the building, a winter soldier saw Alexander go straight to the street and stop a taxi. Dong Bing quickly caught up and asked, "Mr. Wolf King, are you not going back to the base? Tell the commander-in-chief for me. From today onwards, I will be retired." Alexander tore off his epaulet and took off the national emblem on his hat and handed it to the winter soldier. "Where are you going?" Dong Bing asked with tears in his eyes. He was very reluctant to part with the commander-in-chief. The Wolf King did not answer and let the taxi driver drive. He touched his bare shoulder, but a voice echoed in his mind. "Wolf Mountain. Only by returning to the Wolf Mountain and evolving again can I take revenge for this broken arm." United States, Pentagon. In a magnificent conference room. The professor is dead. The Green Goblin is also dead. After listening to the report, Keynes threw his teacup on the floor and slammed the table. He roared like an angry lion. 30 years. For the first time in 30 years, Blue Storm has failed. In the entire world, no one dares to challenge Blue Storm's authority because that is equivalent to challenging the entire American military. That damned Kong Tae-chu. Perhaps we should be friendly to Kong Tae-chu. The Sea Lady reminded him gently, after all, he has never set foot in America, and Blue Storm is also part of the American military. At least not in terms of sequence, right? General Kane's eyes flashed with a ferocious killing intent. He said in a deep voice, "Kong Tae-chu will either submit or die." The great United States, the great American military, has never bowed to any individual or force. We will not allow such a threat to exist. But how can we kill him? This is an almost impossible mission. The Sea Lady frowned with a serious expression. Normal tanks and cannons can't hurt him. This was already proven when Kong Tae-chu broke through the 28-man mixed army and air brigade. The Sea Lady shook her head and sighed. And now, Kong Tae-chu seems to be even stronger. He can control the commander's thoughts. Professor said that mind control has a range. He can only control the mind within a few dozen kilometers using the brainwave enhancement room. A major general of the army pondered for a long time before saying, "Perhaps we can kill him with ground-penetrating missiles or intercontinental missiles." While Kong Tae-chu is a citizen of Hua-xia, such large-scale weapons cannot be used. A CIA official said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded. Hua-xia was a sovereign country, and it was a superpower with a modern army. Releasing such weapons of mass destruction was tantamount to starting a war. No one dared to do so. Miniaturized electromagnetic weapons and laser weapons suitable for individual combat might be able to do it. The person in charge of Bell Laboratories, who had close ties with the American military, said after pondering for a moment, "I don't think there's much hope." The Gold Battle General's brow furrowed as he said, "The black hole he created can swallow everything." For a moment, the conference room was dead silent. The discussion reached a stalemate. General Keynes, who had been gloomy, suddenly smiled and said, "What if Kong Taechu stays in Sidoni? If he stays in Sidoni, then of course we can use weapons of mass destruction." A hawkish official said, "Starting a war with Hua-Xia, which has nuclear weapons, is tantamount to starting World War III. But Sidoni is just a poor and backward small African country. Of course we can use it. But why would Kong Taechu stay in Sidoni?" someone asked, puzzled. "Professor Zhang Ru, do you think there's such a possibility?" General Keynes turned his head and looked at an old man with white hair and a pair of black-rimmed spectacles. He was wearing a long coat with a buttoned front. "Who is he?" "It seems to be his first time attending a meeting," someone asked, puzzled. Keynes introduced, "This is Professor Zhang Ru, an academician of the American Philosophical Society, a famous sinologist, a visiting professor of East Asian history at the University of Michigan and Harvard University, and a proud disciple of the great scholar of Hua-Xia, Qian Mu." He introduced Professor Zhang Ru and said in a deep voice, "At the same time, he has an unknown identity. He's a real martial artist, a transcendent master, and a senior consultant of Blue Storm." Professor Zhang Ru's aura was as deep as the sea. He pondered for a moment and said cautiously, "I've carefully studied Kong Taechu's information. His cultivation system seems to be completely different from ordinary martial artists. He's very much like the legendary immortal cultivators, and the immortal cultivators pay attention to wealth, companionship, methods, and land." Professor Zhang Ru said, "The so-called land is a blessed place, a place where mountains and rivers flow in a strange direction, implying the heavenly Tao, conforming to the laws of nature, hiding wind, gathering qi, and nurturing spirit qi. In ancient Eastern legends, cultivators like Kong Taechu can only obtain good fortune, absorb spirit qi, and ascend to immortality by occupying a blessed place, reaching the pinnacle of cultivation. Sidoni is covered in primeval forests and once nurtured blood orchids. I'm afraid it's the blessed place that Kong Taechu needs. It's very likely that he'll stay. There's an old saying in Sun Tzu's Art of War, 'Know thyself and thy enemy, and thou shalt win 100 battles.'" Professor Keynes smiled proudly. "It seems that we should persuade Russia and the European Union to work together to create an environment for Kong Taechu to stay in Sidoni." The more he thought about it, the prouder he became. He said excitedly, "As long as he stays in Sidoni, he'll be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Don't forget, in the 60s, we relied on strong ships, cannons, missiles, and laser weapons to pursue tens of thousands of miles and kill dozens of immortal state warriors. We'll make them tremble in fear when they hear about the United States." He slammed the table with a gloomy and cold look in his eyes and shouted loudly, Kong Taechu, is nothing. Don't forget we have nuclear weapons. A modern army that can annihilate all the experts. We must kill Kong Taechu. He must die." Chapter 603. London, England, Century Building, Lambert Street. John Sars, the director of the British MI6, slammed his fist on the table and said angrily, "That damned Kong Taechu. He killed Zeus. How are we going to explain this to the President and the Holy See? Up until now, he has killed Zeus, Athena, and Apollo, 12 main gods, and 14 divine knights. This is the worst loss the Palace of the Gods has suffered since its establishment. We have to take revenge 10 times, 100 times. Mr. Director, I understand how you feel." Hera shook her head with a hint of fear on her face. "But Jiang Taichu's battle prowess is extremely powerful. With the Palace of the Gods, I'm afraid we'll never be able to turn the tables." She reported everything one by one. "Are we going to ask those true descendants of the gods to take action?" Director John murmured with a grave expression, "But we've finally escaped their control." "You mean the gods' judgment department?" Hera had a complicated expression on her face. "Legend has it that they're true descendants of the gods. Once they appear, they'll cause the rise of the gods, and the world order will be in chaos. They can take action in the name of the Holy See." Director John was in a dilemma, and his expression was grave. Suddenly his phone rang. It was an internal call from his secretary. General Keynes of the United States Department of Defense has invited you to the United States for a meeting to discuss how to deal with Kang Tae-chu. At the same time, the National Defense and Special Intelligence Departments that had received the secret information were paying attention to this news. With the allocation of funds, teams of experts were quickly formed. Research and analysis teams were also operating quickly. On this day, Kang Tae-chu's name resounded in all the major countries. No one could ignore his existence. At this time, Jiang Tian had already repaired his damaged body and recovered to the peak of Qi refinement stage 7. He even showed signs of breaking through to stage 8. This was the advantage of the gung metal divine body. Raising and tempering his cultivation in battle, as long as he could not kill them, would make Jiang Tian even stronger. Qing Linzi, didn't you say he was injured? When they heard that the old dragon's life and death were unknown, they returned to the Changsho tribe and were stunned. The old dragon had actually recovered. What was even stranger was that it had grown 4 claws, and the scales all over its body had turned purplish gold. This fellow was sitting in the middle of the pond, one of his claws digging his nose in a carefree manner while the other hand was roasting a monkey over the bonfire. How did he change? Lin Fengmian exclaimed. This is exactly the same as the legendary true dragon. Zhang Qianlei couldn't believe it. In 1934, he slaughtered a flood dragon in Inko's Tiantai village, which was exactly the same as the old dragon. However, he had never seen a true dragon with dragon claws in his 100 years of life. I don't know either. Qin Linzi was also confused. This old dragon's recovery ability is too strong. Also, how did you grow claws? Only Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with brilliance. He was overjoyed. It's actually a 9-transformation purple gold true dragon. This was a mutant from the prehistoric era of the universe. It's extremely powerful. If it's lucky enough, it can surpass the human race and become a god the Arch. This kind of prehistoric mutant had 9 transformations. Every time it underwent a lightning tribulation, it would transform once and become several times stronger. It was probably because he was electrocuted by Zeus yesterday, which was equivalent to a man-made lightning tribulation. Jiang Tian sighed. The old dragon's luck was too good. Before the first transformation, its appearance and aura were no different from an ordinary flood dragon. How could Jiang Tian have thought of that? It could be said that even now, he couldn't accept it. How could such a prehistoric mutant appear on a dead planet like Earth, which was barren of spiritual energy? What a fortune! What a fortune! In the future, he could ride the purple gold true dragon and fly through the sky and Earth. Even in the cultivation world, he would be very awe-inspiring. He could have this mount. I didn't eat humans. I ate monkeys. Seeing Jiang Tian, the old dragon was shocked. His face was full of fear as he hurriedly carried the roasted monkey to the back. Eat. Jiang Tian waved his hand and smiled. Old dragon, your performance yesterday was very good. As expected of my servant. Compared to master, old dragon, I still have a long way to go. The old dragon said flatteringly in all seriousness. At that time, I fought with Zeus for 300 rounds and stomped on him until he was screaming and begging for mercy. Then he fled toward Cass Lake. I couldn't be bothered with him. I thought that you were there, and since you were there, wouldn't you kill him in minutes? He sighed in melancholy. Sigh in the end. Look, Zeus still fell. Before this, he would nod and bow when he saw me and call himself human pet. Who knew that after not seeing him for a few decades, he actually became arrogant. If you don't listen to the old dragon, you will suffer. The old dragon is really eloquent. He praised both of them in one sentence. Lin Fengmian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Shirley and Qin Linzi were speechless. Old dragon, can we not be so exaggerated? The evacuation ship sent by Huaxia's military arrived and brought many Huaxia refugees onto the ship. According to Jiang Tian's arrangements, Huang Linger, Lin Fengmian, and the others also returned to China. Zhang Qianlei, Jiang Tian, and the members of the medical aid team stayed in Sidoni. The people in charge of the evacuation operation were actually members of the Battle Dragon Special Forces, supported by a fleet of the Navy. Master Kong. Battle Dragon reporting to you, awaiting your instructions. On the dock, seeing that Jiang Tian came to send off Huang Linger and the others, Violent Dragon and the others immediately showed respect to Jiang Tian and saluted him in a standard military salute. Although Jiang Tian had already dismissed Battle Dragon as the chief consultant of martial arts. But in the hearts of Violent Dragon and the others, Jiang Tian would always be their teacher. It was Jiang Tian who raised them to a realm that they didn't even dare to imagine before. That respect and gratitude would never change. This time, the 8 of them went deep into Sidoni and fought bloody battles. They successfully escorted 81 Huaxia refugees to the Huaxia embassy. They fought all the way and broke through the complicated defense line formed by the government army, the rebel army, and the resistance army, sending them to the ship. However, Jiang Tian and the Cass Lake refugee camp rescued more than 200 Huaxia refugees, more than them. Moreover, it was Jiang Tian and Zhang Qianlei who took over the Cass Lake camp and defeated the government army that bought them precious time. They couldn't help but admire Jiang Tian. Thank you for your hard work, brothers. Jiang Tian patted Violent Dragon's shoulder and helped him straighten his collar. His eyes revealed a trace of kindness. However, I've already resigned, so there's nothing to guide you. Obey the orders of your superiors and protect the lives and property of the Huaxia refugees. It's your duty. Go home. Yes, Master Kong. We promise to complete the mission. Violent Dragon grinned and saluted Jiang Tian again with his comrades and the Navy officers on the fleet. They boarded the warship. Master Kong, Master Zhang, thank you. You are our benefactors. We will miss you forever. Master Kong, Master Zhang, take care. Countless Huaxia refugees waved to Master Kong and Zhang Qianlei, tears of gratitude rolling down their cheeks. Sigh, I didn't do anything. Zhang Qianlei was polite, but a warm current surged in his heart. After sending everyone away, Zhang Qianlei smiled and said, Brother Jiang, are you staying here to be an emperor and turn Sidoni into your base? No, I want to turn this place into an independent, democratic, rich, and powerful modern country. Jiang Tian said seriously. You can forget about it. You don't wake up early without benefits. How can you be so great? Zhang Qianlei glanced at him disdainfully. However, he agreed with Jiang Tian's idea from the bottom of his heart. Back then, he was the Taoist master of the Republic of China. His status was so high that he could drink and chat with Baldi Jiang. However, history was turbulent and the regime changed. He could not even protect the orthodoxy of the Taoist master of Longhu Mountain. He could only live under someone else's roof and become a consecrator of the Song and Lu families. It seemed that only by supporting or even directly controlling the regime and making the regime rely on you instead of protecting you could you gain the initiative. The capital, San Juan, presidential residence. The new leader of the rebel army, Field, and the new leader of the Free Resistance Army, Isaac, were quarreling. 3 days ago, the supporters of the rebel army, the Polar Bear mercenaries, were beaten to a pulp by the 2 of them. The rebel army leader, Crown Prince Bobby, and the Free Resistance Army leader, Sidoni, had both died mysteriously in the battle. The entire Sidoni was once again in chaos. The 2 of them immediately used bloody methods to suppress their competitors and became the leaders. Yesterday morning, the masters behind the 2 of them, the Russian and American politicians, called the 2 of them to say that they would give up on their military aid and would not interfere in Sidoni's internal affairs. Field and Isaac each had tens of thousands of troops. Neither of them gave in and both wanted to sit on the throne of the president. The new alliance government formed by the rebel army and the Free Resistance Army also broke down. At this moment, the 2 of them sat at 2 ends of the meeting table. They looked at one another with hatred and hostility. Behind each of them stood a few burly men with heavy machine guns on their shoulders. Their waists were wrapped with brass bullet chains, looking like Rambo. Beside them was a coffin. The 15-year-old Crown Prince Bobby laid inside quietly. Half of his head had exploded, and his pure gold crown and military uniform were covered in blood and brain matter. A few flies were lying on top of it, greedily sucking on the juices. It did not look like two warlords were discussing the future of a country and deciding the future and fate of a country. Instead, it looked more like two mafia bigwigs who were fighting for territory and negotiating with each other. General Field had followed Crown Prince Bobby to form a government in exile in Russia and Europe. He had also studied at the Russian Army Military Academy. He was influenced by the fighting race and had a strong personality. He held a thick cigar in his mouth and said proudly, "No matter what, Sidonia has always been a constitutional monarchy. A king is something that cannot be lacking. If you want to be the president, you must first be conferred by the king." However, Crown Prince Bobby has unfortunately died in battle. We are deeply sorry for the death of Crown Prince Bobby. Isaac sipped his coffee casually. He did not look like he was apologizing at all. He was gloating, "Maybe we should change the constitution and adopt a democratic republic. I will be the president, and you will be the vice president." Chapter 604. You are the culprits who killed Prince Bobby, and you still want to be the president? What a joke. General Field slammed the table, and the Desert Eagle beside him jumped up. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "If you insist on going about things the wrong way, then let's fight. We will fight for the freedom of the people of Sidonia. We will fight for the honor of the king. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Who's afraid of who?" Isaac took out his gun and pointed it at General Field's head and shouted, "You no longer have a king and a prince. This game is over. Who will support you?" Click. Everyone loaded their guns and aimed at each other. The atmosphere became extremely tense, and a gunfight was about to break out. "Put down your guns. The construction of Sidonia still needs you to work together." A pure American English voice sounded, and a Chinese youth with black hair and black eyes walked in with a 4 or 5-year-old black child. Behind them, there was a middle-aged man wearing a strange green robe, looking around arrogantly. Isaac looked at Jiang Tian in surprise and said disdainfully, "Who are you? Who let you in? This is the honorable presidential palace. Didn't you Chinese withdraw from Sidonia?" "My name is Jiang Tian, the guardian of His Highness the Crown Prince." Jiang Tian stood in the middle of the conference table. Little Arthur moved a chair over, and Jiang Tian sat down lazily. "His Highness the Crown Prince? Wasn't Prince Bobby killed in the explosion?" Isaac asked, puzzled. "Yes, His Highness Prince Bobby unfortunately died in the battle, but his son is still alive. According to the Constitution of Sidonia, he is the heir to the throne, and you all have to work for him." Jiang Tian pushed little Arthur out. "Hee, are you kidding? Prince Bobby is only 15 years old. How can he have a 6 or 7-year-old child?" Isaac was obviously a proud and arrogant guy. He pointed the pistol at Jiang Tian's head and said proudly, "Are you crazy? Get out of here. Don't think that I won't dare to shoot you just because you are Chinese. Sidonia is in chaos now. No one knows who killed you. I am the guardian of Crown Prince Bobby, and King Bobby has no children." Field also widened his eyes and slammed the table angrily. "I have been following His Highness Bobby since 10 years ago. I can testify that this little bastard is definitely not Bobby's son." Isaac grinned. "You want to negotiate with us just because you brought an imposter? Dream on. Don't even think about meddling in Sidonia's political power. Get out or I'll kill you." For a moment, everyone present pointed their guns at Jiang Tian, shouting and threatening him. What answered them was a 10-meter-long golden wind blade. A golden wind blade violently slashed out. The heads and necks of all the warriors present were chopped off. Their heads rolled to the ground one after another, and hot blood spurted out from their necks like fountains. A huge hole that was over 10 meters long appeared on the wall opposite of Jiang Tian. The special cement and granite were all cut apart like tofu. Seeing this scene, Field was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He slid from the chair and fell to the ground, paralyzed like mud. More than a dozen guards who heard the commotion rushed in from outside. Before they even raised their guns, Zhang Qianlei had already covered them with a lightning net. Kaboom! Within a second, all the guards were turned into ashes and drifted in the air, disappearing from this world. They are the gods of the other races in the legends. Isaac suddenly realized, and his eyes were filled with fear as if he had seen a ghost. He quickly threw the pistol on the ground and kowtowed, "God, don't kill me, please don't kill me. Now, do I have the right to negotiate with you?" Jiang Tian looked down at the two kneeling men, touched little Arthur's head, and asked with a smile. Of course. Field and Isaac nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Then little Arthur is now Crown Prince Bobby's son. Do you agree? Jiang Tian asked gently. Agree. Agree. The two were afraid that they would be killed by Jiang Tian if they hesitated for even a second, so they scrambled to express their stance. His Majesty Arthur will ascend the throne soon. We will form a new parliament, a new cabinet, and attach ourselves to His Majesty Arthur Jr. to establish a democratic civilization, a prosperous and powerful new Sidonie. Jiang Tian got up and took the crown of King Bobby. This was a pure gold European-style crown, and it was inlaid with dazzling, colorful gems. It was heavy in his hand, and it must be very valuable. Casting the clear dust-out technique, he cleaned the blood and brain matter of the crown. Jiang Tian put the crown on little Arthur's head and said with a smile, "Little Arthur, from now on, you are the king." Little Arthur, who was wearing a crown that was obviously bigger than before, looked at him in confusion, but in the end he clenched his fist and said, "Uncle Jiang, I will listen to you. Your Majesty, your personal military officer is willing to serve you." Field quickly got up and took off King Bobby's clothes, shook off the brain matter, took off his sword, and put it on little Arthur. He had a flattering smile on his face. Field and Isaac quickly introduced Sidonie's current situation to Jiang Tian. President Cuba established a dictatorial government, and the parliament had already been dissolved. According to the constitution, the president should be elected by the parliament and then be conferred by the king. Then a cabinet would be formed. Jiang Tian did things quickly and decisively. He immediately gathered the original members of the parliament and held the king's coronation ceremony. The kingdom was only half a kilometer away from the presidential palace. The originally magnificent palace had long been turned into ruins. Smoke billowed, and there were bloodstains and corpses everywhere. After Jiang Tian killed Thorpe and Crown Prince Bobby, Field and Isaac led their own armies to seize control of San Juan. Several fierce battles broke out here, and all the members of the royal family were killed. Hearing that the new crown prince was going to rebuild the parliament members all rushed here. This group of people were members of the upper class of San Juan. They were elites, and most of them had studied abroad. They were different from the warlords. They had a strong sense of patriotism and wanted to change Sidonie's poor and backward appearance. They wanted to build a new, rich, and democratic country. Other than the parliament members, there were also the chiefs of the major tribes. They controlled the faith of the people and had the most support. Now, they were the new parliament members. This was Jiang Tian's idea. The new parliament had to represent the interests of all classes in Sidonie. Let's welcome the new crown prince, Prince Arthur's guardian, Mr. Jiang Tian, to speak to everyone. Field bowed to Jiang Tian, then stood up and grandly pushed Jiang Tian out. Jiang Tian stood on the podium and spoke in fluent English. Everyone should be clear about the situation in Sidonie. The United States, Russia, and the European Union each supported the warlords, and the warlords fought for more than 10 years. And 3 nights ago, the military mercenary companies of the United States and Russia launched a terrorist attack near the Cass Lake camp, killing Prince Bobby, General Thorpe, and the cabinet ministers. Jiang Tian's gunmetal divine body had reached phenomenal success. He was as handsome as a god, with a masculine aura. His divine sense was strong and immortal spirit chi was dense. He also cast a little charm spell and immediately showed a strange charm, completely mesmerizing everyone. When everyone heard Jiang Tian's words, they were all incomparably convinced. They were greatly affected, and their emotions were stirred up. Jiang Tian glanced at everyone and said with a cold and solemn face, "They want to put Sidonie in a state of chaos and even turn it into a puppet regime of the superpowers. This is something that every conscientious Sidoni government who loves the motherland can't agree to. All races, tribes, and overseas citizens, we all hope for a peaceful and stable situation. In the ancient East, there is a wise proverb: a family can't be without a leader, a country can't be without a ruler. I suggest that according to King Bobby's last words, we welcome the heir of King Bobby, Prince Arthur, to the throne. After saying that, Jiang Tian helped little Arthur over. Poor little Arthur was trembling in fear. He was wearing a blood-stained white military uniform with a pocket-sized sword at his waist. His big eyes were filled with panic, and he didn't look like a king at all. However, most of the people present knew little Arthur. San Juan was like a fourth-tier city in the country, and it was only that big. Which of them hadn't been to the San Juan International Hotel, and which of them hadn't been to Mulligan's Mercenary Manor? Little Arthur had been a doorman at the San Juan International Hotel, and he had been a follower at Black Bear Mulligan's Mercenary Manor. How could they not know this clever child? They could vaguely guess that little Arthur had nothing to do with Prince Bobby. Bobby was 15 years old, and he had a baby at 10 years old. It was too early for him to mature. Everyone stared blankly at little Arthur on the stage, and then whispered to each other. Little Arthur was a little flustered, and his palms were sweating. He held Jiang Tian's hand tightly. Jiang Tian gently patted little Arthur's shoulder. This child had seen the world, and he quickly calmed down. Jiang Tian swept a glance over everyone, and a divine sense pressure rumbled out as he said indifferently, "Could it be that everyone disagrees?" Jiang Tian's divine sense pressure fell from the sky. The others felt as if they were being stared at by a terrifying god, and their hearts trembled. "We have no objection. Greetings, Your Majesty King Arthur." The chief of the K tribe, a skinny old man who looked like Mahatma Gandhi, took the lead and kowtowed to Jiang Tian and Arthur. The chiefs of the Longevity tribe and several other tribes also followed and kowtowed. Seeing that the representatives still didn't express their opinions, Field rolled his eyes and secretly said, "This Master Kong is a real god." He was the one who led Master Zhang Qianlei to defeat the government army and the dictatorship. "Master Kong, we have no objection. Greetings, Your Majesty King Arthur." Hearing Field's words, many of the counselors were shocked and terrified. Their souls left their bodies as they rushed to kneel down and kowtow. Besides, they had no other choice. Now that all the members of the royal family had died in the war, and they couldn't change the constitution, they had no other choice but to let Arthur ascend the throne. Jiang Tian nodded with satisfaction and said loudly, "As everyone knows, the parliament has been dissolved by the president of the puppet government, Cuba, who tried to implement a dictatorship. But all of you here are the original old representatives. Even if you are not a representative, you are still respected tribal leaders and intellectuals with knowledge, culture, and ideals. This is also the reason why King Arthur invited you to participate in the coronation ceremony. I solemnly request you to re-establish the parliament. You can elect a speaker in 5 minutes." As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar. Chapter 605. Many counselors and celebrities looked at each other in disbelief. Actually, when Jiang Tian pushed little Arthur out, these old counselors thought that Jiang Tian wanted to use little Arthur as a puppet and establish a dictatorial government. Just like how the United Kingdom controlled President Cuba, Russia controlled Crown Prince Poppy, and the Americans controlled Thorpe. But they didn't expect that Jiang Tian actually kept the parliament. This fully showed that Jiang Tian wasn't a dictator. He really wanted to turn Sidoni into a modern democratic country. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to dig his own grave. After a short period of shock, they quickly felt a heavy sense of responsibility and honor. The king, the royal family, and the cabinet were all wiped out. Now Sidoni was in chaos. It was even more chaotic than when the warlords were fighting. At this time, if these intellectuals who had studied and studied abroad did not stand up, when were they going to do so? Did they want Sidoni to be in chaos forever? The tragedy of the genocide was still vivid in their minds. Anyone with a conscience in Sidoni didn't want such a tragedy to happen again. In less than 5 minutes, they elected the president of the parliament. At this time, no one was thinking about fighting for power. The newly elected president was a professor from San Juan University named Andy. This person had studied at the International Relations Institute of Huaxia Yenjing University. He spoke Beijing dialect very well. It was convenient for him to communicate with Jiang Tian. Because the president didn't have a suitable candidate, Mr. Andy temporarily acted as president of Sidoni. While they were in the middle of the election, Jiang Tian said to Field, "Field, call the people from the national TV station over. Immediately hold the coronation ceremony." "Sir Godfather, the national TV station has been destroyed in the war." Field shook his head helplessly. At this time, a blonde woman with blue eyes walked over and said with a smile, "Master Kong, I'm Meryl, a former reporter from the Associated Press. But now, I'm willing to serve you. Maybe you need a professional spokesperson." "Serve me?" Jiang Tian asked curiously. "I know you. You're the Master Kong who shook the world. You once defeated the 28th Japanese Mixed Brigade." Meryl was wearing a reporter's outfit, loose camouflage pants, and high-top boots. Her figure was very sexy, and she looked very handsome. Her blue eyes flashed with admiration as she smiled. Jiang Tian was not surprised by this. That battle was witnessed by many Japanese civilians. There were even some photos and videos left behind. Although the Japanese officials kept a tight lid on this matter, there were no reports of it in the newspapers. But I'm afraid that the Japanese will also leak this information to the foreign media. Perhaps Meryl had also gotten the information. Meryl's figure was sexy and hot, and she had a passionate and unrestrained personality. Without waiting for Jiang Tian to ask, she quickly spoke. "In 2003, I reported on the U.S. military's abuse of prisoners of war. I was severely punished by the U.S. government. My journalist license was revoked, and I was fired from my newspaper. I was slandered and persecuted by the remaining pictures. I've worked for Sidoni for many years. I know about America's support for the Freedom Resistance Army. I've witnessed the warlords slaughtering civilians and carrying out genocide policies. I sympathize with Sidoni who's suffering from the flames of war. You're a righteous soul formation stage cultivator, while America represents evil. I want to support you with practical actions. Also, I have an informant in the CIA. I can get a lot of their top secret information. Then you're even more suitable to be an informant." Jiang Tian laughed heartily. "Informant? Actually, I can do it too." Meryl shrugged and said with a smug smile, "Do you know about the Darknet forums? You're very popular there. And I'm the famous observer." "So, you're the observer?" Jiang Tian was slightly surprised. "Actually, we're a team made up of more than 30 experienced reporters, former informants, computer hackers, and international informants. Our dream is to uncover the cruel truth of this world, expose the hypocrisy of democracy, and free the oppressed people of all mankind. I know almost all the top secret information of every country. I've heard a lot about you." Jiang Tian was immediately impressed by Meryl. He shook hands with her and said, "From now on, we're comrades." At this moment, Meryl was very much like a self-media person in the future. She had 2 locally hired assistants, a camera, a DSLR camera, and a livestream van. She made a living by selling battlefield news to the media all over the world in exchange for royalties. Meryl connected the camera to the livestream van, and the video could be sent to the media all over the world through satellite signals. She also contacted a few war reporters in Sidoni, such as BBC, Bloomberg, NBC, and so on. The reporters came one after another. What happened next would be unforgettable for all of them. Dashiell, the chief of the K tribe, who was already over 70 years old, was helped down. He even changed into a bright red robe with golden edges. President Kubo was controlled by the British and promoted the religion of the Holy See. But now that the colonists were gone, it was unreasonable for him to still believe in their religion. He had to believe in the local religion. Little Arthur originally believed in the Church of Creation. After a vote in the Parliament, the Church of Creation was naturally listed as the national religion. Chief Dashiell was originally the priest of the Church of Creation that the K tribe believed in. Now he was the archbishop. At this moment, the military attendant on the stage had already prepared a tray covered with red velvet. On the tray was the golden crown. This was custom-made by a famous jewelry company in Italy when Sidoni declared independence from the colonies under the British in the 1960s. It could only be used when a king ascended the throne or during an extremely important occasion. It was very meaningful. The coronation ceremony was very simple. Under the witness of the parliamentarians and celebrities, the new king, little Arthur, knelt on one knee. The archbishop held the crown with trembling hands and placed it on little Arthur's head. He said solemnly, "Divine power, in the name of the beginning." The new Archbishop Dashiell secretly decided that he would learn English or Chinese and rewrite and explain the ancient scriptures of the Church of Creation. In his opinion, Kong Techu was the sky, the universe, the reincarnation of the God of creation or his noble and glorious messenger. He was the God who protected Sidoni. Some people might think that this was stupid. However, from the perspective of the archbishop, Jiang Tian was able to defeat the three gods of the Changshu tribe, control thunder and lightning, shake the army, create space, defeat the palace of gods, protect the K tribe, suppress the warlords, and save Sidoni from the war. If this was not a god, then what was a god? Then, the new king, Arthur, held an ancient scripture and constitution in his hand and swore to the beginning that he would work hard to revive Sidoni and build a new democratic, strong, and prosperous country for the rest of his life. In fact, the members of the royal family were all dead. No one knew the real coronation ceremony. This was completely planned by everyone on the spot. However, from the perspective of the procedure, the archbishop, the scripture, the crown, and the constitution were all there. No one could find fault with it. The most important thing was the great significance it contained. The image of the coronation ceremony had been broadcast to the whole of San Juan, Sidoni, and the whole world through Merrill's live broadcast vehicle. No one knew who started singing "God Bless San Juan." In fact, this song was originally "God Bless San Juan," but the lyrics were immediately changed. The song was solemn and stirring, and the tone was impassioned. Many people shed tears of excitement. The media reporters frantically pressed their shutters and used their cameras to record this historic moment. In the past, when he was in danger, he was enthroned in a pool of blood and ruins. He swore to revive the small poor country in Africa. This was a rare explosive news that would definitely go down in history. Today, we are all Sidoni's people. An emotional BBC reporter sobbed and used a satellite phone to send the news and pictures to his boss. After the coronation ceremony, Jiang Tian immediately called Zhang Qianlei. "Old Zhang, send little Arthur to the San Juan International Hotel. Protect him closely and set up a few defensive formations." "What about you?" Zhang Qianlei frowned. "I'll go to Sidoni and take a look at the terrain. I'll look for suitable candidates. The next step is to elect a president, form a cabinet, and set up defenses." Jiang Tian said, "I've been in seclusion for decades. I'm bored to death. Now that I've finally come out, it'll be boring for me to sit in the hotel. I want to take a look too." Zhang Qianlei glanced at Jiang Tian and said reluctantly, "Besides, you've killed the professor and Zeus. We've taken care of the warlords supported by the major countries. Who would dare to cause trouble? Don't think that we're safe after defeating Blue Storm, Winter Soldier, and the Pantheon. In fact, the war has only just begun." Jiang Tian glared at him, frowned, and said with a serious face, "The super overlords are eyeing the blood orchid, but these countries are also eyeing the rich mineral resources in Sidoni. They won't give it up easily. Besides, the major countries have been suppressing the immortal state warriors. For decades, the immortal state warriors have obediently submitted to the major countries and dared not fight against them. But now that we've supported the new Sidoni regime, it's tantamount to challenging the major countries and challenging the international order they have established. I suspect that the military of the United States, the European Union, and Russia won't sit back and do nothing. What you said is possible." Zhang Qianlei's face turned cold and he nodded in agreement. Only when one reached his level could one understand how terrifying the immortal state warriors were and how complicated the secular power's feelings and attitude toward immortal state warriors were. Chapter 606. In the long river of history, there had been immortal state masters who controlled the politics of small countries and supported puppet regimes. One word from them would bring prosperity to a country, and one word from them would destroy a country. However, since the rise of modern weapons, especially nuclear weapons, the secular power had declared war on immortal state masters. In the 50s and 60s, many powerful countries had hunted down blood breeds, dark wizards, and all kinds of talents all over the world in the name of a joint military show. Strong ships and sharp cannons went into battle, chasing them until they fled in panic like stray dogs. Blood flowed like rivers and heads rolled. Immortal state masters either died, hid like rats, or sought the protection of big countries like Wolf King and Professor, bowed their heads and lived under the eaves. In short, the cultivation world was silent. At this point, the secular power had won the battle between immortal state masters and immortal state masters, establishing a solid foundation for violence. For 60 years, immortal state masters were almost forgotten. Now, Jiang Tian's strong rise, especially his support of Sidoni's new regime, was bound to cause a chain reaction. There were a few possibilities. One was that those immortal state masters who had been dormant for decades and finally made the CIA and KGB forget about Jiang Tian would rise up and rebel, or even follow Jiang Tian. However, this would inevitably lead to a counterattack from the big countries. The other possibility was that those deity realm experts hated Jiang Tian to the bone and wished for nothing more than to tear Jiang Tian into a million pieces because they were remembered by these great powers once again and were hunted down by them. From this point of view, Jiang Tian was right. The war had not ended, but had just begun. After 3 days of preparation, 3 CA-313 helicopters imported from Huaxia took off from the king's mansion and flew north, then south. They planned to visit all of Sidoni in 3 days. Accompanied by King Arthur, Merrill, Zhu Jiangchao, Lu Kuo, Yuan Kursin, Field, and Archbishop Dashiel, Jiang Tian began to inspect the land of Sidoni, which had just been extinguished from the war. The 2 helicopters behind were filled with food and medicine. There were also dozens of Huaxia medical aid teams following them. When they reached the large tribes, they landed to help the poor and those who were injured in the war. Sidoni has a total area of 320,000 square kilometers. The northern part is the Sidoni Plateau and mountainous areas. Mount Surad is the highest mountain with an altitude of 2,400 meters. It is the highest mountain in the country. The central and southern parts are plains, but most of them are primeval jungles that haven't been developed before. They cover 90% of the land and have a tropical climate, so they are rich in natural resources. Zhu Jiangchao had worked here for several years and was familiar with the place. He had a detailed understanding of all kinds of data, and he spoke tirelessly. Sidoni's GNP in 2009 was a pitiful $10 billion, and its per capita GNP was only $348. The growth rate for several consecutive years was 0 or even negative. It's almost the poorest country in the world. After flying for half an hour, they soon arrived at a mountainous tribe. The tribesmen welcomed them warmly and kowtowed to Jiang Tian and the others. This place was located in the highlands and mountains north of Sidoni. It was barren and even more backward than the K tribe. Most of them didn't have houses and lived in caves. Some even lived on trees to prevent the invasion of wild beasts. The tribesmen didn't have clothes to cover their bodies. Most of them simply used banana leaves and cloth to cover their lower body. The adults and children were all skin and bones. Many of them were infected with infectious diseases. They leaned against the shade of the trees weakly. Zhu Jiangchao and Yuan Kursin immediately took action. They diagnosed them, fed them medicine, and even performed some simple surgeries. They also distributed food and drinking water to them. If there were any difficult diseases, Jiang Tian would directly treat them. The immortal doctor's methods had the effect of reviving the dead. He took out a pill and dissolved it in a large bucket. After everyone drank a bowl, the plague and serious diseases instantly disappeared. Benefactor. The medical team is our benefactor. This must be a god, he actually cured my malaria. The tribesmen were so moved that tears streamed down their faces. They knelt on the ground and spoke in their native language in English. This is the beginning, the only god of Sidoni. He is protecting the poor people of Sidoni. Archbishop Dashiell, who was like Mahatma Gandhi, stepped forward and distributed scriptures to the villagers. He emotionally recounted the deeds of Jiang Tian in Sidoni. The beginning is the sky, the God, the universe. He is also the creator of the universe, our guardian. These medicines and food were all brought by him. Believe in the beginning and you will receive blessings. You will gain eternal life. Archbishop Dashiell stood on the high ground and waved his hands passionately. Tears streamed down his face from time to time. He looked like an old swindler and had the demeanor of Tang Xiaozi. The beginning, please protect us. After the villagers heard this, they became even more respectful. They all kowtowed as if they had seen a true god descending. These photos can shut the mouths of the Americans. This is true humanitarianism. Meryl, on the other hand, held the camera and frantically pressed the shutter, recording the touching scenes. Her assistants were also filming the whole process. These videos would be made into a special feature and would be broadcasted on Sidoni's national television station and other major media outlets around the world. Meryl was very good at news battles. Didn't the Americans like to talk about human rights? Let me show you. The helicopter flew and stopped. After visiting 3 tribes, more than half of the medicines and food had been distributed. Sigh, I think we only need to visit 2 more tribes and all the medicines will be distributed. Zhu Jiangchao shook his head and sighed. This place is too poor and backward. There is a lack of medicine. Master Kong, this country is a hot potato. Yuan Kerson's eyes also revealed a worried expression as she said in a deep voice. The reason is that education, technology, and culture are backward. In the 70s, when they had just become an independent country from a British colony, the West German government started a literacy campaign and the literacy rate reached 50%. But in the 90s, President Cuba established a dictatorship and started a civil war. Almost all schools were closed and the illiteracy rate reached 85%. There was almost no technology or industry. The infrastructure is very backward. The country is mainly covered by roads. There is only a railway that Hua Xia helped in the 70s. But the roads and railways have been in disrepair for a long time. Inland transportation mainly depends on elephants, camels, and cars. Because of the Civil War, the security situation has deteriorated. Prices have skyrocketed and daily necessities are in short supply. More than 75% of the population does not have safe drinking water. According to the World Bank, the average life expectancy in 2004 was 47 years old and the mortality rate of children under 5 years old was 22%. Don't worry. I have confidence. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Master Kong should be like this. Captain Zhu, Kerson. Don't be too pessimistic. Lu Kuo was excited. He slapped his thigh and introduced with a smile. According to our preliminary investigation, the highlands and mountains north of Sidoni contain a large amount of magnetite and rare earth ores. But because of the war between the warlords for many years, they have not been mined. Just this part of the ores is worth trillions of dollars. Now, under Master Kang's leadership, Sidoni is stable. If these ores are developed, it will be enough to make Sidoni filthy rich and create another Yui. Vale, Rio Tinto, BHP Billiton, and those other large mining companies will pale in comparison. Originally, the Sidoni branch was not valued by Jinneng Group. After all, Sidoni was in a state of war and did not have the conditions to develop it. But it was different now. The Sidoni branch might become the most important overseas branch of Jinneng Group. While they were talking, the helicopter landed on a flat ground on Mount Sudra. Jiang Tian got off the helicopter and looked around. As far as his eyes could see, there was a lush primitive forest. The forest was filled with white fog and spiritual qi. There is no need to develop this place. Jiang Tian shook his head gently and smiled. It can be used as a training base. The faction is here. What? Master Kong, you don't want trillions of magnetite? Lu Kuo was stunned. It's just trillions. What's the big deal? Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully. Sidoni's main industry will be the medical industry. To be exact, it will be the longevity industry. At the side, Fidel hurriedly took out a small notebook and wrote it down. Grandmaster Zhang's instructions were like golden words. That's true. Master Kong is a medical family after all. He has an advantage in this development. Lu Kuo nodded, but he did not agree. The market value of Yaowang Group was only 200 billion Huaxia dollars. Because of the high liquidity and frequent transactions, the market value of listed companies had a premium, which meant that the real value of the company was discounted. Even if Yaowang Group expanded 10 times, it would not be as cost-effective as mining. Having a mine at home was the way to go. He did not know that Jiang Tian's assets were in the trillions, and he still had money to spare. Other than that, South Korea's Xinyue, Japan's Mitsui, and many other tycoons were under his control or were his allies. If that was the case, the funds that could be mobilized would be more than 1 trillion. It would not be difficult to turn Sidoni into a modern country. If he set up a few spirit-gathering arrays here and supplemented it with various pills to slow down the aging process, it would be enough to push an ordinary person to 150 years old, attracting the attention of the world's tycoons. If each person handed over 3% of their personal assets, Jiang Tian's income would be more than a few trillion dollars. Moreover, if these tycoons wanted to move to Sidoni, they would have to bring many advanced technologies and job opportunities. This would enrich Sidoni's real economy. It would be more effective than mining. This place will be called Tianqing Mountain from now on. It will be where my faction is located, Jiang Tian said. Jiang Tian's consideration was even more far-reaching. After this battle, the United States, Russia, and the European Union will definitely see me as a thorn in their side. Jiang Tian took a deep breath of spirit energy and looked down at the mountains with a long gaze. He sighed in his heart. I should use this mountain as a base and build my own force. A true cultivation sect must have as many grandmasters and immortal state warriors as there are rain. Together with the green-scale fire owl, various Dharma artifacts, and the Kuelian weapons developed by Fourth Uncle, I will build an army of cultivators as my direct army. Master Kong, you know that we have released a lot of information about you on the dark web. In between the inspections, Merrill smiled. Grandmaster Jiang, I wonder if I can release the footage of your battle at Koss Lake. Chapter 607. Didn't you say that your dream is to reveal the truth of this world? This is also part of the truth, right? Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Not only can you publish it on the dark net, but you can also publish it on the international internet. You really have a journalistic spirit. Meryl was stunned, then she gave him a thumbs up and silently praised him. But you have to be careful. Jiang Tian said, let's put it this way. I only want the elites of the world to know part of my strength through certain channels, but forget about the ordinary people. Jiang Tian thought further. This time, he wanted to show his strength. He wanted all the strong people in the world to submit to him, and he also wanted to attract those rich people to come over and build Sidoni together. I don't need to hide anymore. It's time to show my sharp edge that can kill all living things. Jiang Tian smiled faintly, then a light flashed in his eyes, and he said to himself, it's fine if these superpowers are peaceful, but if they don't challenge me and dare to offend and provoke me. When the time comes, I'll show them which is stronger, the cultivation civilization that has developed for hundreds of millions of years and once swept across the universe, or the modern technological civilization on Earth that has only a few hundred years of history. Although the European Union, Russia, the United States, and other superpowers strictly guarded the news of the battle at Cass Lake, the relevant news still reached the dark net. Suddenly, the entire dark world was shocked, as if a ladle of water had been poured into a pot of oil, completely boiling. A real immortal state battlefield. All of them are immortal state, or existences comparable to immortal state. A super luxurious battle. This is Kong Taechu's strength. Zeus, Professor and Athena died in battle, and the Wolf King lost an arm. What's Kong Taechu's cultivation level? It's too unbelievable. Zeus is a saint, a human immortal comparable to Hua-Xia. Kong Taechu alone fought the Winter Soldiers, Blue Storm, and the Palace of Gods, 3 powerful organizations. Kong Taechu is invincible. 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 Kong Taechu is invincible, invincible, invincible. Who is he going to get rid of this time? No one is his match. My saber is thirsty and thirsty again. None of the experts were able to calm down. The posts flooded the screen crazily as the experts vented the shock in their hearts to their heart's content. Professor, Alexander the Wolf King, Athena, Gar the Wolf, Plehanova the Ice Witch, Zeus, each and every one of the names that dazzled the starry sky were all existences that were comparable to the deity realm or had surpassed the deity realm. They were either overseeing a region and dominating it, or they were in charge of a country's powerhouse organization, making the country's head of state rely on them. They were so powerful that other than nuclear weapons, anti-tank missiles, cruise missiles, and other weapons of mass destruction, no conventional weapons could kill them. But this time, he actually fell or was defeated by Jiang Tian. Especially Zeus. He had topped the power rankings several times and was the world's #1 powerhouse. The Winter Soldiers were backed by Russia's Northern Army, Blue Storm had close ties with the Pentagon, and the Palace of Gods was inseparable from the European Union and the Holy See. They were all supported by the major countries of the world and were the top 3 powerhouse organizations in the world. But they were still defeated by Kong Taechu as easily as chopping vegetables. If Kong Taechu wasn't invincible, then what was? The Observer is indeed worthy of being called the Observer. She actually predicted that Kong Taechu and Zeus would fight in advance. At this time, someone mentioned the Observer again. That's right. She predicted that Kong Taechu and the Winter Soldiers would fight Blue Storm and the Palace of Gods. But she also didn't expect that Kong Taechu would defeat the 3 powerhouse organizations in one battle. Someone exclaimed. Just as everyone was engrossed in the discussion, the Observer appeared and released a bombshell. Detailed analysis of the Battle of Khas Lake, how powerful Kong Taechu is. This time, the Observer released a high-definition video recorded by a high-speed camera, accompanied by detailed data analysis. The first video was of Jiang Tian killing Gar, Siberian Hammer, and the Ice Witch within a few seconds and severely injuring the Sea Lady. The high-speed camera was very powerful. It could record more than 100,000 frames per second. 1 second of footage could be played as 2 hours. At that time, Gar and Siberian Hammer were attacking at close range, while the Ice Witch and the Sea Lady chose to attack from a distance. The Ice Witch was the furthest away. After some calculations, she was 1,000 meters away from Kong Taechu. This video has a total of 3 seconds. In the first 2 seconds, Kong Taechu killed Gar and Hammer. In the second, he crossed 1,000 meters and killed the Ice Witch. In other words, his speed reached 1,000 meters per second. The Observer analyzed. In an instant, the sound of people sucking in cold air could be heard. 1,000 meters per second. More than 2 Machs. More than twice the speed of sound. Many people couldn't believe it and were dumbfounded. Only the overlords who often studied modern weapons understood what this number meant. The speed of a pistol's bullet was usually 400 meters per second. In other words, the bullet was only 1 centimeter away from Kong Taechu's head. He could easily dodge it. The famous Tomahawk cruise missile speed was only 0.72 Mach. This meant that if Kong Taechu warned in advance, he could even escape the cruise missile's bombardment. Kong Taechu's cultivation has been improving. Even when he faced the 28-man mixed brigade in Japan, he didn't burst out with such speed. The Observer's words were shocking again. Everyone was worried. The battle in Japan was less than a year ago. In less than a year, Kong Taechu's combat power had improved so much. The future, everyone didn't dare to imagine. Powerful combat power wasn't scary. The most terrifying thing was that the combat power was increasing rapidly and even infinitely. He had already surpassed the immortal state. What about the future? Would he become a real god? Then, the video of Jiang Tian killing the overlords of the Winter Soldiers and a few alpha wolves was released. Oh my god! Which of these gene-edited freaks doesn't have a strong physical body that can take on cannons head-on? But Jiang Taichu killed them like chopping vegetables. Invincible! 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 Everyone was dumbfounded. Their hearts trembled and their blood boiled. They wanted to roar to the sky. When the last two videos were released, when everyone saw Kang Taechu controlling the black hole to exile Zeus and kill Athena with one hand, everyone was speechless. The forum fell into a terrifying silence. Thousands of overlords hiding in the dark all over the world stared at the computer screen. Their pupils kept trembling, but no one dared to say a word. After a full 10 minutes, someone finally exclaimed loudly, as if his soul had returned to his body, "Brother, this is an instant kill." From the beginning to the end, it took less than 3 seconds to kill 2 overgods and 2 mighty figures on the power roll. The most terrifying thing is, what method did he use to kill Zeus? Have you seen it before? Have you heard of it? Zeus seems to have suddenly disappeared. The observer, what method is this? Can you explain it to us? What's Kang Taechu's cultivation now? Saint? Has he surpassed the saint? Saint is a Western term. In Hua Xia's cultivation system, he should be called an immortal. Has Kang Taechu really become an immortal? But the observer didn't answer these questions. She quickly went offline. The unknown is the root of fear. It's also good to leave a sense of mystery. You can figure it out yourself. After a long time, someone suddenly asked. But, the observer, how did this battle break out? Did Kang Taechu go to Russia? Idiot! Russia is covered in ice and snow now. Don't you see the trees here? Damn it, get lost if you don't know how to chat. You're delaying our understanding of the situation. Someone yelled. I found out from a secret channel that this battle took place in an African island country, Sidonie. After someone revealed the news, there was dead silence. Everyone instantly understood the crux of the matter and was dumbfounded. Kang Taechu is Sidonie's master now. I heard that before World War II, in the Middle Ages, there were immortal state experts who easily destroyed cities and controlled the governments of small countries. They were insufferably arrogant. But after the rise of nuclear weapons after World War II, the experts either retreated or became the lackeys of the current superpowers. All the glory was gone with the wind. And now, Kang Taechu has done it. Kang Taechu has rewritten history and restored the glory of the cultivators. Kang Taechu's action is challenging the authority of the current superpowers. Maybe it will change the world order and structure. Let's go to Sidonie and join Kang Taechu. Many experts worshipped Jiang Tian madly, treating him like a god, and had thoughts of submitting to him. And that was exactly what Jiang Tian wanted to see. Good, good, good. This kid is getting stronger and stronger. He's raising the prestige of our country. In the base of the long formation, Chao Shixiang read the relevant reports and sighed with emotion. This time, the 3 strongest organizations have suffered a great loss. Our dragon group will rise with the tide. The 4 spirit generals and the group of 8 looked at each other with a trace of shock and envy in their eyes. Now, Jiang Tian had reached a level that they could only look up to. He was unparalleled and unattainable. This time, Jiang Tian had defeated the 3 top organizations in the world and killed the most powerful creatures on this blue planet. And these organizations were on par with the Long Formation, or even stronger than the Long Formation. If he comes back, I'm afraid no one can stop him. Maybe. Hongmeng? Red Sparrow said in a trembling voice. Although she didn't want to admit it, she had to. Now, only Yi Tianren and a few old monsters in Hua Xia could fight with Jiang Tian. Why do you have to fight? One is my father, and the other is half my teacher. Hearing this, Yi Zhantian lowered his eyes and a trace of complicated emotion flashed in his eyes. Father and Jiang Tian had an agreement of 3 years. At that time, how should he stop that slaughter? Why do you have to stop him? Master Kong has contributed to the country. He saved more than 200 Huaxia refugees. Chao Jianjia glared at Red Sparrow and complained. Yes, Master Kong is now in Sidoni to build this country together. Violent Dragon had participated in the rescue mission and learned some things, so he was allowed to attend this high-level meeting. He's not going to come back? Chao Shixiang was shocked and a trace of deep worry flashed in his eyes. This won't do. This is equal to exposing himself to the threat of nuclear weapons. He should go back as soon as possible. Chapter 608. At the same time, some blurry photos and short videos began to circulate on the internet. At first, it was just a video posted on a newly registered Twitter account called The Witness. If the myths and legends are true, what will the world become? In the video, a figure floated 100 meters in the air and walked step by step toward a city. Below, tanks and armored vehicles formed a torrent of steel. Tens of thousands of people fired at him, but it did not affect him at all. Instead, he easily crushed armored vehicles and raised his hand to cast a lightning net. It can't be real. This must be a movie clip. Wow, it's so spectacular. Amazing. How imaginative. Oh my God, this is a visual blockbuster. Is this director Nolan's new work? Many people quickly reposted it, but most of them were joking and did not believe it. Director Nolan was famous in the United States and had directed many sci-fi and fantasy blockbusters. He was tagged by netizens and immediately reposted the video with a comment. How interesting. At this stage, no special effects company can make such a realistic video. This was equivalent to indirectly denying that it was made by special effects. I recognize this military uniform. It's the military uniform of Sidoni's old government army. It can't be a movie, right? Some military fans paid attention. But soon, a second video, a third video, and more videos were posted. Many people's preconceived notions began to waver. The howls of these werewolves are too miserable. It doesn't sound like an act at all. It's full of fear and despair. It makes my hair stand on end. Is it a real battle between gods or special effects? Don't use such clumsy marketing tricks. My appetite has been whetted. In the mobile internet era, information spread like a virus. Soon, on YouTube, Facebook, blogs, these videos and discussions appeared. The Witness's Twitter followers quickly exceeded 100,000, 1 million, 2 million. The number of followers rose steadily. Shocking. Sidoni appears. Huaxia gods and Western gods. The war has broken out. A god appears in Africa. One man defeats tens of thousands of soldiers. Gods, do they really exist? Perhaps the world is about to change. One after another, explosive headlines appeared on the front page of various media outlets. The small media outlets were desperately exaggerating. Even if the traditional media adhered to journalistic ethics and would not jump to conclusions, they still paid close attention to this incident, commenting and analyzing it as a mysterious and unknown event or a cultural phenomenon. All kinds of factors added fuel to the fire, making the battle between Sidoni and the deities even more intense. The Western world was in an uproar. United States, San Francisco, Silicon Valley. Facebook's headquarters building. Chairman Mike stared at the news on the internet and took a sip of his black coffee. Rubbing his chin, he pondered, interesting. Why are these people making up fake news? At this time, the female secretary made an internal call. Chairman, there are visitors. You may need to meet them. Mike looked impatient. Are those stupid entrepreneurs hoping for financing? I don't have time. Maybe you have to. The guest is from Langley Building. The female secretary said. Central Intelligence Agency? Mike was slightly taken aback. He frowned and said, let them in. Mike's Facebook had more than 400 million registered users and more than 100 million online users at the same time. Now his personal assets had reached $4 billion. He was the youngest person to enter the Forbes list of the world's richest people this year. It was his first time dealing with the CIA. Mike twirled the coffee cup in his hand, feeling a little nervous. God knows how many secrets these guys knew about him. 5 minutes later, a tall black man walked in. He was wearing a well-ironed suit, a white shirt, and a scarlet tie with a small flag emblem. He was obviously a government employee. He showed his work ID and introduced himself. "Hello, I am Colonel Miller from the CIA. Sir, I have heard of you. You are also a famous alumnus of Harvard. I heard that you used to serve in the Air Force and are a former cybercrime investigation expert in the Air Force." Mike shook hands with him and said, "I am the founder and chairman of Facebook, Mike. Sir, what can I do for you? I also have another identity. I am a strategic consultant for the CIA's Fiery Eye network investigation company." Colonel Miller took out a small black stick the size of a recording pen from his pocket and pressed a button. Mike frowned and felt even more uneasy. This should be a military electromagnetic interference device to prevent audio and video recording. Colonel Miller said faintly, "You have to delete all information about Sidoni's Battle of Gods from Facebook." Mike suddenly laughed. "Colonel, are you kidding? This is not in line with American values, nor is it in line with the law. Citizens have freedom of speech, and the media also has freedom of the press. I'm afraid I can't comply with your order. Mike, please take your conversation with me seriously. This is not a discussion, but an order." Colonel Miller's eyes showed a trace of coldness. He crossed his fingers on the table and said calmly, "Facebook is a company that abides by the law. I don't think you can do anything to me if I don't carry out your unreasonable order." Mike smiled proudly, tit for tat. No wonder he was called the second Gates of the Internet upstart. He was calm and had a strong aura. Colonel Miller sneered, took out a military tablet from his briefcase, and quickly turned it on. This computer was connected to satellites in space, including some spy satellites. It could see what was happening in the United States and any corner of the world. When Mike was in college, he interned at Google and developed paid Google Earth. It was so accurate that he could see a dog in the park. But compared to the CIA's, it was nothing. The resolution of these surveillance satellites could see the words on a newspaper in a person's hand. Colonel Miller quickly operated on the computer and then turned the computer screen to Mike. "I wonder what expression Miss Rachel, who you are pursuing, will have when she sees this picture?" In an open-air pool on the rooftop of a seaside villa. Mike was clapping for sex with a bikini girl. It was so clear that even his body hair could be counted. "Damn it. You are monitoring me? You violated my privacy and portrait rights." Mike suddenly broke out in cold sweat and glared at Colonel Miller. "We are protecting the United States of America, and you are among our protection." Colonel Miller said faintly, "My California boy, I can't let you walk out of the sight of your mother. I heard that your company is planning to be listed on NASDAQ. If this girl sues you for infringement, I'm afraid your listing plan will be put on hold. You also know that the United States stock market has always been known for strict regulation. Companies in litigation can't be listed." "Okay, I will delete the relevant information." Mike trembled. He didn't know whether it was from anger or fear, but in the end, he said with a face full of humiliation, "Well, thank you for your cooperation." Colonel Miller got up and said goodbye. He shook hands with Mike and smiled. "Mike, the best computer expert will never be in Silicon Valley, but in the CIA. I hope you can join us one day." After walking out of the Facebook office building, Colonel Miller got into his bulletproof Land Cruiser. He closed his eyes tiredly and waved to the driver. Next stop, to Twitter headquarters. Damn it. An endless fire. 10 minutes after Colonel Miller left, Mike wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and came back to his senses. The CIA was indeed not to be trifled with. Nothing could escape their eyes. He quickly went to the computer and operated it. He found that the related news and discussions on the internet were quickly decreasing. On the other hand, the news of a certain Hollywood female star's marriage made the headlines. It seems that Colonel Miller and the others spent a lot of effort to delete this news. Mike rubbed his chin, his eyes becoming incomparably deep as he said, "The more the government tries to cover up, the more real it is. Could it be that this news is true? At this time his cell phone rang. It was a call from Mr. Marshall, an old tycoon in the United States. Mr. Marshall was the spiritual leader of the California Consortium. He had a lot of influence in the United States. Including the famous Hilton family, they were all members of his banner. Marshall was also one of the venture capitalists of Mike's Facebook network. At the same time, he was also the grandfather of Miss Rachel, whom Mike admired. Little Mike, come to Deer Leap Wine Cellar. Many people say that Sidoni's God might be real. I want to hear your opinion. Marshall panted. Mr. Marshall, I'll be there immediately. Mike knew that Marshall was already in the terminal stage of blood cancer. In fact, Mike had been looking for famous doctors all these years, but there was no obvious effect. San Francisco, in a luxurious manor less than 10 kilometers away from Silicon Valley. The green grass covered a vast area. Sister, is this really him? Jenny Hilton sat on the swing and looked at a few photos on the tablet in her hand in amazement. She said in disbelief, he actually went to Africa and exposed his strength. Wearing a bright red dress, Paris Hilton looked at the distant east. A charming smile appeared on her enchanting face as she said with certainty, other than him, who else could it be? He has become the true leader of Sidoni. He is the godfather of the little king and the god they believe in. Jenny's face was full of amazement. Her beautiful blue eyes showed a trace of enchantment as she murmured, he is really a godlike man. He hunted a country. He defeated many warlords and supporters behind them. Paris sighed faintly and said, it seems that he is destined to stand at the top of the world. The whole world is nothing more than a tool for him to turn the clouds and rain. And now, he has finally begun to officially announce his great ability to the world. But he is also facing a crisis that he has never faced before. He provoked the United States. Jenny frowned her beautiful eyebrows and said with a worried face. Paris's eyes showed a trace of sharpness. She looked at the old butler who was standing beside her and said, I want to meet my father. Maybe this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the Hilton family. Chapter 609. By now, Jiang Tian had finished his 3-day inspection. During the 3 days, he had gone deep into the tribe and the forest to understand the geography of Sidoni, especially the education and medical standards of the people of Sidoni. The result of the inspection was simple and direct. Sidoni was the most suitable place to build his ideal country. Although this place was primitive and backward, it had no historical baggage. It was like a blank piece of paper, and it was easier for him to write freely. In fact, with his strength, he can easily suppress Singapore or South Korea and establish absolute authority over a country. But Jiang Tian did not choose this path. The reason was that these countries had all kinds of factions, cultures, beliefs, and large interest groups. Jiang Tian had to spend a lot of effort to suppress and pacify them. Although Jiang Tian's words carried weight in Sidoni, he did not consider himself the emperor, nor did he want to become a dictator. He did not want to turn Sidoni into his private property, nor did he want to take advantage of the poor people of Sidoni. He only wanted a piece of land that belonged to him, and he could build his own faction and base. According to Jiang Tian's suggestion, Sidoni's interim government had set aside 50,000 square kilometers of land in Sudra Mountain. They had used Hua Xia's state-owned land auction system as an example and announced it on the global media as a state-owned land for bidding. This meant that any company in the world could bid for this land. Although it was rumored that this area was rich in magnetite and rare earth resources, other than the Gold Energy Group, no other mining giant had set foot in this area. Even if they knew there were minerals in this area, not many people would bid for it. One had to know that Sidoni had been embroiled in wars for 20 years. Although King Arthur Jr. had ascended the throne and formed a new interim government, who knew if there would be another war? Secondly, Sidoni's economy and culture were extremely backward, and there were plagues and strange diseases everywhere. The geological conditions were also average, and it was not suitable for development. The most important point was that the interim government had made it clear that mining was not allowed here. Instead, real estate was to be developed. This instantly blocked many of the international mining giants who were somewhat concerned about this. In the eyes of those real estate tycoons, developing real estate in a poor mountainous area was the biggest joke in the world. Even if you build a house like a palace, who will live in it in the end? Where are the clients? Therefore, when many consortiums and tycoons saw this advertisement, they just shook their heads and chuckled. No one took it seriously. In the end, only Jiang Tian and a handful of companies participated in the auction in Sidoni. And Jiang Tian's first bid was $10 billion. The other companies did not bid again. Therefore, Jiang Tian took the land use rights of this area with a radius of 50,000 square kilometers for 70 years. The president, the interim president, Professor Ander, and Jiang Tian signed the contract, which was notarized by 2 lawyers. Master Kong, I heard that you're returning to China. I wish you a safe journey. We're looking forward to your return, Sidoni. We can't do without you. After he signed his name, he put away his contract and said with a pleading look, I'll come back. Otherwise, why would I buy this land? Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Interim President Ander and the 2 lawyers got into a Mercedes-Benz. The lawyer named Doug, who just notarized the contract, pushed his black-rimmed glasses and frowned. President Ander, you're really a hound. Don't you think you're too evil? Your name is a hound. Interim President Ander said in surprise, Why would you think that? He was the one who proposed to buy this mountain. Actually, President Kuba had asked someone to survey that area before. There are no minerals in that 50,000 square kilometers. Doug shook his head and said mockingly, Also, the mountain environment is very bad. There are no roads. It's impossible to develop real estate. The real rich magnetite is in the other 50,000 square kilometers. It's not the barren mountain that Mr. Jiang wants. $10 billion? That's equivalent to 1/3 of our national income last year. In my opinion, the interim government shouldn't take a single cent. You have to know that this honorable Mr. Jiang is our benefactor. He saved Sidoni from the flames of war. You also know that Mr. Jiang isn't an ordinary person. He's like a god. The interim president shrugged and said seriously, In the eyes of others, that place isn't worth a single dollar. But Mr. Jiang will definitely make a name for himself in that place. He didn't say that Jiang Tian had given an even more generous offer. He would personally provide 500 billion Huaxia dollars in military aid to Sidoni. It included building an army, sending people to participate in the war, training military personnel, building military projects, and so on. If he said that, he would probably be scolded even more harshly by Doug. As for the 50,000 square kilometers of rich magnetite, Mr. Jiang said that it was a precious treasure left for Sidoni's descendants. He would never touch it. Mr. Jiang was really Sidoni's savior. In the end, Jiang Tian accepted Chao Shixiang's suggestion. Accompanied by Speaker Andrew, he boarded a Huaxia military plane back to Huaxia. After the plane took off, Jiang Tian saw a few ships cruising in Bibo Bay. The sea water was colorful and full of garbage. He couldn't help but frown and ask, Mr. Andrew, what's that? That's a garbage ship from France's New World Renewable Energy Company, a transport ship, Speaker Andrew lamented. They dump garbage on the high seas, but this garbage will flow to Sidoni's Bibo Bay according to the direction of the ocean current. This activity has been going on for 10 years. The fish and shrimp have died, the offshore aquaculture industry is finished, and many residents have been infected with strange diseases and are suffering from torture. French ships? Jiang Tian was in a hurry to return to Huaxia, so he couldn't be bothered with them. He said, Speaker Andrew, you have to deal with it. This is against international sea law. The United Nations Environment Agency will take care of this. Mr. Jiang. Speaker Andrew quickly took out a small notebook and wrote it down. It was a 14-hour flight. Jiang Tian safely returned to Huaxia. Yanjin Military Airport. Chao Shixiang, Yizhanten, and Tang Hongtu secretly met with Jiang Tian. The meeting room was small, but it was very meaningful. They not only represented themselves, but also the consciousness of the central government of Huaxia. Jiang Tian, are you really leaving? Chao Shixiang said in a deep voice, I'm afraid the United States has already targeted you. I know. Jiang Tian smiled and said, but don't worry, Elder Chao. Unless they use nuclear weapons, they can't kill me. Master Kong, as long as you have Huaxia's citizenship and stand on Huaxia's land, they will never dare to touch you. Yi Zhantian said earnestly. Elder Chao, Brother Yi, you should also see that one day, my power will suppress the army. Jiang Tian said meaningfully, you understand me and agree with me, but it doesn't mean that others are not afraid of me. Huaxia, no country will allow violence to surpass the military. Unless this country is mine. I cherish our friendship very much. I don't want to sit at the negotiating table one day and fight with each other on the battlefield. Well, Jiang Tian, if that's the case, I won't force you. You have to be careful and keep a low profile. Chao Shixiang pondered for a moment and finally nodded. He patted Jiang Tian's shoulder and said deeply, also, don't forget our friendship and the cultivation of our motherland. I will never forget that I am a descendant of the Yellow Emperor, born and raised in Huaxia. Jiang Tian shook hands with Chao Shixiang, Yi Zhantian, and the others, got into a Mercedes-Benz and went straight to Yanjin Yuhua Villa. A grand meeting was waiting for him. This meeting was unprecedentedly grand. The backbone of the Jiang family, the members of the Heavenly Alliance and the 6 major families of Yanjin all attended. Everyone, Sidoni is a hot land. I plan to build a new Sidoni here. On the rostrum, Jiang Tian sat in the middle and glanced at everyone and said in a deep voice, Sidoni? Everyone was dumbfounded. He was doing well in Huaxia. Why would he want to go to Sidoni, a small African country in the middle of nowhere? Jiang Tian signaled with his eyes, and Jiang Chao distributed the stacks of information that he had prepared in advance. Jiang Tian said slowly, if you follow me, I will help you reach the immortal state. If you want to be an official in the secular world, you can be promoted to the president, minister, or mayor. If you want to make money, I promise you will be rich. Your assets will be 10 times, 100 times. More importantly, in the next 100 years, Sidoni will become the most livable country in the world. Reach the immortal state? Grandmaster Jiang is serious. Many experts cried out in surprise, not daring to believe it. That's right. The spirit chi there is dense. I plan to build a new sect, the Taichu sect. Jiang Tian said. When the time comes, I will send all kinds of divine powers to everyone. With a large-scale spirit gathering, everyone will reach the peak of the transcendent state or even the immortal state. Suddenly, Hua Qingtian asked in a hoarse voice, Master Kong, was the battle in Sidoni started by you and Zhang Qianlei? I heard from a few juniors that there was some news on the martial artist forum and the dark web. That's right. Zeus, the professor, and Athena were all killed by Master Kong. As a witness, Lin Fengmian said proudly, that's right. The palace of the gods, the winter soldiers, and Blue Storm were all slaughtered by Grandmaster Jiang as if they were vegetables. Master Kong is invincible. They are the top overlords in the world. Once he said that. The cultivators were all shocked to the extreme, their eyes wide and mouths agape, unable to believe what they were seeing. Why is it that we can develop so well in Sidoni? Many people in the secular world also discussed and couldn't believe it. In short, Master Kong is the real king in Sidoni and King Arthur is Master Kang's godson. As soon as Lin Fengyan said this, everyone was shocked. Chapter 610. What do you mean? This kid brought an African country to play with? In his seat, Jiang Changing was dumbfounded. This grandson of his was getting more and more out of hand. Controlling an entire country was simply unbelievable. But Sidoni is very poor and backward. I'm afraid it's not something that can be built overnight. Iron Monarch said worriedly as he flipped through the information. Don't worry. Yi Ziwei, who had studied the information in detail, said, Master Kong now has more than 1.3 trillion Huaxia dollars in his overseas account. Together with the investment, $10 trillion will be poured into Sidoni within a month. It's only 640,000 square kilometers, equivalent to 3 Jiangsu provinces. That's enough. Jiang Tian looked at Iron Monarch and said with a smile, "Monarch, I heard that you were a colonel in the Air Force. Your family's military industry is also very good. Do you want to be an Air Force commander or something?" "I was a colonel in the Air Force, a special class pilot." Tai Ming Monarch knew that Jiang Tian was selecting a new leader. He felt extremely honored and his blood was boiling. He immediately stood at attention and patted his chest loudly, expressing his stance passionately. "It's my honor to be able to build Sidoni with Master Kong. I'll be there right away." Tang Xiaozi stood up, put his hands together, and said, "Master Kong, according to the information, Sidoni has already worshipped you as a primordial deity. Using primordial to represent the heavens, the universe, and nature, I think it's very creative." And the first sentence of the Gospel of John says, "In the beginning, there was Tao with God, and Tao is God." It can be seen that everything has its own destiny. Grandmaster Zhang's title as a god is also well-deserved. "Tang Xiaozi, you've converted?" Jiang Tian asked in surprise when he saw the scar on his head and the monk's robe. "That's right." Tang Xiaozi's face glowed with a kind and peaceful light. He nodded like an enlightened monk. "In my heart, Master Kong is the reincarnation of Buddha. But in Huaxia, there are many restrictions and I can't erect a statue of you. I can only donate a few temples and carve your appearance on the Buddha statues to comfort myself." With a face full of excitement, he said, "It's all good now. I'll immediately return to the secular world and join the Sidoni native creation sect. I'll work hard for the rest of my life to spread Master Kang's glorious achievements. I think you and Archbishop Dashiell will get along very well." Jiang Tian nodded with satisfaction, then glanced at everyone. "What I need to remind everyone is that we are likely to be attacked by military forces such as the United States, Russia, and the European Union. Sidoni is not absolutely safe. It's just a small country in Africa. How did it become a thorn in their side?" Someone asked in confusion. Only overlords like Huqing Tian, who knew Jiang Tian well, showed a hint of worry. Jiang Tian had shown the power of a deity. This was a complete subversion of the existing civilization and order. The United States and other superpowers must be very afraid and want to strangle Jiang Tian and Sidoni in the cradle. Everyone knows that every country is actually suppressing cultivators because they are afraid of the subversion of cultivators, but Sidoni won't. Jiang Tian said with a smile, "This will become a paradise for cultivators. This will become another kind of civilization, a society where technology and cultivation coexist. You will guard Sidoni and become heroes, generals, and marshals." As soon as these words came out, the hearts of many martial artists and warlocks almost jumped out of their chests. In recent times, Huaxia had launched 2 purges of martial artists. The first was around the time of the founding of the country. Yi Tianren crossed the river on a reed and traveled south with his sword. He chased the Hong sect, annihilated the Green Gang, broke through the 9-story pagoda, and forced the Blue Cloth Society to leave. He killed until heads rolled and blood flowed like a river. The other was in the 90s. Yi Zhantian led the Long Formation to carry out Operation Drawing Sword and drove Xiaobin away. Many martial arts grand masters died and spellcaster masters went into seclusion. On a global scale, before and after World War II, the pantheon of gods in Europe cooperated with the modern army to kill the werewolves, the kindred, and the dark warlocks. The United States even sent out the Black Sea Fleet to hunt them down and kill many immortal state warriors with missiles, tanks, and neutron bombs. Why were martial artists killed so miserably when they had the dragon-slaying technique? The reason was simple. Martial artists broke the law with their martial arts. In other words, there was a possibility that they might break the law. The rulers of the secular world were not martial arts masters, but weak human beings. They had no ability to protect themselves and didn't want to live under the threat of powerful cultivators. He might as well kill them all. Only a few who were willing to join them were left. But why did martial artists break the law with their martial arts? Because they didn't have the skills to help the people. Secondly, they had no place to use their martial arts. They could only take by force. But now, Jiang Tian's idea solved the two problems that troubled the cultivators. The reason why Jiang Tian dared to build such a system was also very simple. Because Jiang Tian was a cultivator, the most powerful overlord in the world. Let's go. We want to live an indomitable life. We want to make a name for ourselves. Members of the Heavenly Alliance, martial artists, and spellcasters scrambled to stand up. Their eyes burned brightly as they passionately declared their stance. Very good. Jiang Tian stood up and smiled. And those of you who don't have any cultivation have seen it. You can rest assured. You will have a super strong army to protect you. You can show off in Sidoni. In 1607, a colonizing team of about 100 people built Jamestown on Chesapeake Beach. 300 years later, this group of colonists built the most powerful country in the world, the United States. And I assure you that in 2 years, Sidoni's military power will be comparable to that of the United States. Its comprehensive national power will be comparable to the 5 major countries in the world. And you will be the pioneers and builders of the new Sidoni. You will be recorded in history. Your names will go down in history forever. Jiang Tian's words made everyone's blood boil. They couldn't wait to shout to the sky and raise their arms to cheer. However, it's human nature to relocate. I won't force anyone who doesn't want to go. They raised their hands to vote and quickly reached a consensus to migrate to Sidoni. Almost no one backed out. This was because Jiang Tian always kept his promises and never broke them. They were deeply convinced. This credibility was far beyond that of any country in the world. It was easy to reach a decision, but when it came to implementing it, they realized that it was an extremely huge project. Jiang Tian's personal assets were in cash and were easy to transfer. However, the properties of the Jiang family, the 6 major martial arts families in Yanjing, the Lingnan Tangs, the Beis, and the Taiyais were mostly fixed assets. Real estate could be sold. However, manufacturing machinery and equipment was huge and complicated. This was what the poor and backward Sidoni needed the most. Everyone discussed animatedly, some nodding in agreement. In the end, Jiang Tian made the decision. Yi Gufeng's shipping company will be in charge of shipping. Use all ships. Also, contact the Nanyang Gua family's shipping group. Gua Lily is still the chairman. The first batch of people, all martial arts families above the Grandmaster level, must rush to Sidoni immediately. The other party may start a war at any time. We must be fully prepared. The second batch is the construction companies of Lin Fengmian, Tang Shaozi, and other families. They will start a construction frenzy in Sidoni. In 3 months, build a brand new Sidoni. The first batch is the Medicine King Group. They will withdraw from the market and buy all their shares. All production equipment will be shipped to Sidoni. The third batch is the military industry of Yanjing's Zhang family and Taiming Emperor. They must focus on developing Zhang Qing'an's Kuelian weapon system as soon as possible. In addition, the telecommunications industry must be built as soon as possible. In short, the infrastructure and military industry must be built first. In his previous life, he had controlled several cultivation empires and was very familiar with deploying troops, colonizing, and establishing a country. Everything was at his fingertips. Jiang Tian's order had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Everyone started to move. After the meeting, Jiang Tian put his arm around Yi Ziwei's shoulder and said earnestly, "Sister Ziwei, you have to learn international law. I think you are quite suitable to be Sidoni's foreign minister." Female department head, how exciting! Jiang Tian chuckled. Stop joking. The Medicine King Group is enough to give me a headache. You should find someone better. Yi Ziwei said politely, but she was actually tempted. Thinking about it, it was quite good. In fact, Jiang Tian was not joking at all. On his way back, he had been thinking about suitable candidates for the president and cabinet. After much consideration, Yi Ziwei was the most suitable for the foreign minister position. She was the one who promoted the internationalization of the Medicine King Group. Now, it had spread to all of East Asia, Southeast Asia, and even North America and Europe. In the process, she had accumulated rich business experience and was very good at learning. In Jiang Tian's opinion, management was common. Managing a large multinational company was no different from managing a country. It was just that she had to be familiar with the relevant laws and rules. As for the military, the first person Jiang Tian thought of was Tang Linglong. Although Tang Linglong's cultivation and combat strength were only average among the many members of the Heavenly Alliance. But after all, she had undergone the military training of the Dragon Army and had a certain level of battlefield commandability. Therefore, Jiang Tian called Tang Guizhu, who was attending the meeting, and asked, "Is Linglong back?" Tang Guizhu shook his head helplessly. "How wild. No news?" Jiang Tian frowned. Tang Guizhu hesitated for a moment, then said awkwardly, "She did send a message. She is now a disciple of the semi-hidden Wudang sect. And she is the chief disciple." Seeing Jiang Tian's uncertain face, Tang Guizhu said nervously, "I have scolded you. Grandmaster Jiang, I've scolded her before. She's your direct disciple, and your kindness to her is as heavy as a mountain. How can she randomly join another sect?" But she said that she was looking for cultivation resources for her master. No matter how I tried to persuade her, she would not listen. He sighed deeply. Chapter 611. It's okay. It's good that she has made progress. Jiang Tian did not take it to heart. The Wudang mountain was quite powerful and had some foundation. If they treated Tang Linglong well, it would be fine. If they dared to make Tang Linglong suffer, he would kill them all. After the restarting the Heaven Alliance meeting, there were many things to be done. However, Jiang Tian was a strong general and had no weak soldiers. Whether it was Yi Ziwei, Hua Qingtian, Shen Mange, Lin Fengyan, or Chen Zifan, these people were originally existences in charge of a region. Their abilities weren't bad, and they were very familiar with how to handle matters. On this day, two uninvited guests, Paris and Hilton, came to Yuhua Mountain Villa to visit Jiang Tian. Paris' makeup was exquisite, and her outfit was hot and sexy. One side of her custom-made Gucci dress had a high slit, revealing her white and plump thighs. She wore a white silk blouse with a white collar, revealing her voluptuous breasts. The pinched waist design accentuated her proud figure, causing one's imagination to run wild. Jenny, on the other hand, was much plainer. She wore denim shorts, Converse canvas shoes, and a cotton t-shirt. She looked like a little girl from a liberal arts college. Mr. Jiang seems to be even more handsome. However, her pair of beautiful eyes stared fixedly at Jiang Tian, rippling softly, filled with adoration and tenderness. "Paris, you're just in time. I have something I need your help with." Jiang Tian crossed his legs, sipped his tea, and smiled. "I've always wanted to be of service to Master Kong, but I never had the chance." Paris smiled flatteringly. She peeled a grape for Jiang Tian and stuffed it into Jiang Tian's mouth. "Where did this vixen come from? You're not serious at all. Is this your job? So flirtatious." This made Shen Mange, who came to serve tea, unhappy. She was secretly vigilant. Jiang Tian could only swallow the grape since it was stuffed into his mouth. He waved his hand and smiled. "Paris, I want an aircraft carrier." Hearing this, Jenny was shocked, but Paris was not surprised at all. She laughed and said, "Master Kong wants to use it in Sidoni, right? However, the major countries that could produce aircraft carriers would probably not be willing to sell them to Master Kong. Therefore, you need me as your representative." "That's right. No problem. I believe that the intelligence agencies of the various countries have already investigated you thoroughly. They might even learn about the friendly relationship between you and the Hilton family. However, the Hilton family has many business allies. In the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Europe, we have friends all over the world." She smiled confidently. "I can entrust 3 or 4 shipping companies to act as agents. After changing hands layer by layer, it will definitely fall into your hands in the end. This matter must be settled as soon as possible." Jiang Tian said, "Price is not a problem. Of course I know. Master Kong is very rich. But I'll give this aircraft carrier to you for free." Paris smiled. But Jiang Tian was slightly taken aback. He smiled and said, "Friends are friends, business is business. This is not a small sum. I want to get a few permanent residency certificates in Sidoni for me and my family." Paris said. "Paris, you are very good at doing business." Jiang Tian did not know whether to laugh or cry. "I agree." After this matter was settled, Paris said seriously, "Mr. Jiang, you should know that some people in America see you as a thorn in their side." "Some people?" Jiang Tian was surprised. "Shouldn't it be the whole of America? Not all Americans know of your terrifying strength and see you as a threat." Paris smiled and said, "The only ones who truly understand your strength are the Langley Building and the Pentagon, which are the CIA and the Department of Defense. Most Americans do not know anything about you." Hearing this, Jiang Tian nodded slightly. The CIA and the Department of Defense, who were in charge of the Hawks, definitely did not have good intentions toward him. They knew a lot of secrets and thought far ahead, thinking that he could overturn the current world order. But they could not reveal this information to more people to gain more support. The reason was simple. Once this top-secret information was exposed, the current world order would collapse even faster. Also, even if they know of your strength, they are not all wary and hostile toward you. For example, the Hilton family is your staunch supporter and follower. Paris said coquettishly. "Paris, what are you trying to say?" Jiang Tian smiled and asked, "No matter what, these Hawks are a real threat. If there are no more variables and the current situation continues to develop, it is very likely that the CIA and the Department of Defense will come to an agreement within 3 months to take action against Master Kong, or more accurately, against Sidoni." Paris's expression gradually turned serious. Blue Storm has already returned in defeat. Do they have any other trump cards? Jiang Tian smiled and said, "However, Blue Storm was very powerful in the legends, but reality proved that it was only SOS. Mr. Jiang, they still have 2 trump cards." Paris said without hesitation. "What?" "The first trump card, conventional weapons, modern warfare." Paris Hilton said. Jiang Tian smiled and said, "Paris, do you think war is so easy to start?" In recent years, under the manipulation of the American mining giants and Wall Street, the price of crude oil has risen, and the Baltic Index has continued to rise, which eventually led to the price of iron ore. America has profited a lot. Paris was not like what the media reported. She was not just a vase who liked to flirt with male models and celebrities. In fact, her business acumen and vision were extraordinary. She immediately analyzed the situation tirelessly. And Sidoni is rumored to have a lot of rich magnetite. This is also the reason why the Pentagon and a few mining giants and arms dealers supported Sidoni to get their hands on Sidoni. The Pentagon can continue to use this to persuade the president and cabinet to take further military action to seize control of Sidoni. You mean they can start a war on the surface to fight for commodity pricing rights, but their real goal is to kill me? Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with sharpness. "That's right." Paris nodded and said, "It can be said that controlling Sidoni's regime was the Pentagon's established strategy. Your sudden intrusion broke their established strategy, but it also gave them a chance. A chance to kill you and Sidoni together." Jiang Tian smiled noncommittally. The Hilton family was one of the top families in America. They were truly powerful and influential. They had a good relationship with political families like the Roosevelt family. Paris had been around these top nobles since she was young. She was very familiar with the operating procedures of America's political institutions. Her words were of course credible, or at least had a certain reference value. In Jiang Tian's view, the only things that could threaten him were nuclear weapons, intercontinental missiles, and a few other large-scale weapons. And once these weapons were used, it meant the beginning of a war. Whether he was in Huaxia or in Sidoni, once America started a war, America would be strongly condemned by the international community. There would even be demonstrations to impeach the president. America couldn't use weapons of mass destruction, so they couldn't do anything to him. Mr. Jiang, I know you have the awareness of a media war. These days, the new Sidoni government released a promotional video to the world, describing the difficult journey of Sidoni's independence, the living conditions of the people, and the tireless efforts of the Medicine King Group and you to eliminate poverty and disease, for justice and light in Sidoni. Paris's expression was unprecedentedly serious as she said, but this isn't enough, far from enough. America is an expert in media war. They will definitely find an impeccable reason to oppose you and the new Sidoni government. Paris said with slight disdain, no politician in the world is better at acting than them. Yes, I admit that. Jiang Tian nodded, and his eyes gradually became serious. Back then, America and Britain worked together to bypass the United Nations and started the Second Gulf War on the pretext that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and secretly supported terrorist acts. But until the withdrawal of Iraq this year, America and the Pentagon didn't find any evidence, but Iraq's king was hanged as a dictator. In fact, all of this was just to protect the supremacy of America's oil resources. Jiang Tian sipped his tea and said, "What about the second trump card? You're not talking about Blue Storm, are you? In my opinion, it's just SOSO. Universe Shield." Paris said word by word. Universe Shield? Jiang Tian was slightly stunned. This was the first time he had heard of this organization. Even Elder Chow and Yizhantian had never mentioned it. As far as I know, Blue Storm is a super organization supported by the Pentagon. It's not the strongest in America. After all, the Department of Defense is in charge of conventional warfare. Blue Storm is just a useful supplement. The real ones in charge of special operations and superhumans are actually the Langley Building, which is the CIA, and the Universe Shield, which they fully support, is the headquarters of America's superhumans. It's also a special force that deals with all kinds of strange events. This organization has a long history. No one knows the specific time it was founded. In the long river of history, it has changed its name, purpose, and organization structure several times. Legend has it that Newton, Einstein, the father of computing, von Neumann, the founder of artificial intelligence, and so on were all members of this organization. Currently, the Universe Shield has gathered the world's top scientists. It said that they excavated a ruin in the Bermuda Triangle in the 1960s and obtained incredible technology from it. They claim that their purpose is to gather the world's power to resist the invasion of super civilizations, including aliens. There's technology from the future in the Bermuda Triangle? Jiang Tian's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were filled with curiosity. Could it be the ruin of an immortal civilization? Chapter 612. If the Blue Storm was equivalent to the Huaxia Long Formation, the nature of the Universe Shield was similar to the most mysterious organization in Huaxia, Hongmeng. It was completely hidden from the world and was the last trump card of the country. They only cooperated with the top of the pyramid of power and were rarely known. They couldn't be exposed to the public at all, because once exposed, it would mean the overthrow of the existing order. The Bermuda Triangle, Jiang Tian really wanted to investigate, but he didn't have the time now. The most important thing now was to build Sidoni's base. However, after hearing so much, Jiang Tian looked at Paris in a new light. He smiled and said, "Paris, you know a lot of information. In fact, I was once a level 7 agent at the bottom of the Langley Building. I mainly operated in Europe. That's why I had so many scandals." Paris didn't hide anything. She smiled and said, "A level 7 agent is only a level 7 agent. I don't have the authority to access the Universe Shield. I only know the general information." Well, the outstanding female spies and secret agents are almost all female celebrities and socialites. Jiang Tian nodded secretly. He thought to himself that this would explain why Paris looked so unrestrained. This was the best kind of disguise. Paris's eyes flashed with a hint of resentment. She said coldly, "But I've already retired. None of the people at the Langley Building are good people." Looks like Paris is also a person with a story. Jiang Tian sighed in his heart, but said calmly, Paris, I agree with what you said. That's right, Sidonie is facing a lot of danger now. However, with your intelligence, you've probably already helped me think of a strategy to deal with it. Being praised by Jiang Tian, Paris's heart was sweeter than drinking honey. It was as if she had received a great compliment. She became even more excited and smiled. Mr. Jiang, you know that the United States has a system of separation of powers. The Pentagon and the Langley Building are responsible to the president, but there's still Congress and the judiciary to suppress them. In fact, I know that there are several real powerful people and political families in the United States who are very dissatisfied with the current president and cabinet, especially the Langley Building and the Pentagon. I think we can form an alliance with these people and suppress the hawks who are against you. This is enough for you to obtain a rare opportunity for development. What do you think I should do? Jiang Tian already had some understanding in his heart. Mr. Jiang, you've been demonstrating your terrifying lethality and destructive power, but there's an ancient proverb in Huaxia that says the best generals can subdue the enemy without fighting. Paris smiled and said, I heard from Guo Lily that your medical skills are superb. You once saved her grandfather who was in the last stage of cancer and was on the verge of death. I think it's time for you to show your constructive side. You mean? Medical skills? That's right. Iris smiled. The current president, Langley Building and Pentagon are serving the old consortia such as Rockefeller, Cleveland, Mellon and so on. These consortia are mainly focused on old mineral resources such as oil. They also include some military-industrial groups. This is the reason why they want the Pentagon to start a war. They want to snatch mineral resources and at the same time, sell their arms. However, those old families have blocked the development of the new energy and the new economy. The most obstructed by them is the California Consortium, which focuses on new energy and technology companies. California Consortium? Jiang Tian slightly frowned. He was quite unfamiliar with the name. The California Consortium is mainly made up of Silicon Valley elites. They have hundreds of new energy and technology companies under them. They include the well-known Facebook, Microsoft, Oracle, and so on. They are a new consortium after World War II in the United States, but their strength is not small. They are enough to compete with the old consortia like Rockefeller. Their values are internationalization. They are against war and trade wars. At present, the California Consortium has a lot of agents in Congress and courts. They have even collected a lot of evidence that is enough to suppress the Langley Building and the Pentagon. There is also good news. The spiritual leader of the California Consortium, Mr. Marshall Wooding, was seriously ill a year ago and has been issued a notice of critical illness. Last week, I attended a party hosted by him in his private manner. During the party, he asked the founder of Facebook, Mike and others more than once about the news of the god Sidonie. He's very interested in these mysteries and you. The so-called enemy of the enemy is our ally. Mr. Marshall and the California Consortium are extremely hostile to the current president. They want to attack the Langley Building and the Pentagon. They also don't want to see war. They don't want to see the old oil and mining families further expand. If you cure his serious illness, I think he will definitely tear the face of the Langley Building and the Pentagon. So, I hope you can come to the United States. Good. Thank you for doing so much for me. Jiang Tian pondered for a moment and readily agreed. The Hilton sisters secretly visited China and also secretly returned to China. Jiang Tian immediately prepared to leave. But as Jiang Tian expected, when he applied for a visa with the identity of Jiang Tian, the United States Immigration Department did not hesitate to reject the visa. It seemed that the United States Intelligence Agency was not just for show. It was far more powerful than the big families in Huaxia. They had already investigated his double identity thoroughly. But how could this stop Jiang Tian? With an order, he had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. The new ID card and visa under the alias of Tian Jiang were quickly processed. The next day, Jiang Tian was alone. He took a Boeing 737 from Yanjing Airport to San Francisco International Airport. After more than 10 hours of flight, the plane landed across the Pacific Ocean. As a port city on the west coast of the United States, San Francisco was not cold in April due to the subtropical Mediterranean climate. San Francisco's transportation was very developed, especially air traffic. It could land any type of aircraft in the world. There were countless routes to the major airports in the world. The modern airport was very busy with passengers. In the crowd, an Asian man with a rough appearance and a beard was more than 2 meters tall. He was pulling a simple suitcase through the long security checkpoint. After a strict inspection, a blonde female security inspector in a blue uniform carefully looked at the other party's visa and smiled. "Huaxia, it's rare to see someone as tall as you." "Yeah, but that doesn't stop me from being a pure Huaxia." The other party winked. "If it's possible, I would like to treat you to a drink. San Francisco's Pink Bar's rum tastes pretty good." The female security inspector felt that this Chinese man was filled with a strange charm. She couldn't help but want to approach him and boldly invite him. "Although you're very charming, unfortunately, I already have a wife." The other party shrugged and seemed to be regretful. "Your wife must be very happy." The female security inspector thought of her alcoholic and violent husband and couldn't help but sigh with envy. She stamped him and let him go. The Huaxia man walked out of the airport, picked up the phone, and came to the VIP parking area outside the airport. He saw Paris Hilton standing next to a red BMW supercar and looking around. "Where's Mr. Jiang?" "He said he's already here." Hilton glanced around in surprise. Her eyes swept past the tall Huaxia man's face without stopping. "I'm here." The man waved his hand. Just as Paris was at a loss, the man's bones shrank, the muscles on his face suddenly contracted and changed. His beard disappeared and he turned into an exceptionally handsome man. This bearded man was Jiang Tian after the transformation. Now this was his true appearance. This is amazing." Paris Hilton was shocked as if she had seen a ghost. "America, it's worthy of being the strongest country in the world. Its economy and technology are far superior to other countries." At this time, Jiang Tian's divine sense swept across hundreds of miles and sensed the prosperous city of San Francisco and the world's most high-tech industrial park, Silicon Valley. He couldn't help but sigh softly. 3 years after his rebirth, Jiang Tian stepped on the soil of the world's most powerful country, the United States of America, for the first time. "Oh my God, he can transform. It's like magic." "No, that's divine power." Sitting in the red BMW supercar and driving out of the airport, Paris Hilton was still immersed in shock. She suddenly had an idea and said excitedly, "Master Kong, in fact, you can transform into the President of the United States of America or a senior official of the Department of Defense and end this war. Do you think that there aren't super powerful Americans monitoring and guarding these places?" Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, "These little tricks can fool the security personnel, but they can't fool those super powerful people." "Yes, you're right. I heard a 10th-level agent of the CIA say something before." Suddenly, Paris's heart skipped a beat. She muttered, "Rumor has it that there's a blue witch in the Universal Shield who can transform." She once transformed into the president to sign a financial support document for the Universal Shield, but she was still discovered by the super-powerful people stationed in the White House. This matter made the president and the cabinet very angry, but because the Universal Shield is too important, the matter was left unsettled in the end. She actually has the ability to transform. I wonder if it's a talent or some secret inheritance. Hearing this, Jiang Tian's heart skipped a beat. The appearance of the gunmetal divine body and the secular appearance were naturally formed, but Jiang Tian only had these two appearances. To transform and change into other appearances, the consumption of life essence was no small matter, and it could only be activated at the late stage of qi refinement. But the Universal Shield actually had a super powerful person who could transform at will. It seemed that this organization was indeed stronger than Blue Storm. However, Jiang Tian didn't have to think about this at the moment. He smiled and said, "Where are we going now?" "We're going directly to Mr. Marshall's private estate, Deer Leap Wine Cellar." There's a celebrity gathering there tonight. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.